All right, what's going on, folks? Welcome to a valued conversation, GenX spoken word. I apologize that we're starting a little bit late, but one of my guests has not been able to make it, so I was lucky enough to find someone to fill in. I'll introduce her in just a moment. So as everybody knows who comes here, it's not about the amount of people that we have that shows up. It's about the information that we put out. So whether we have 15 people, 50 people, or maybe just 2 or 3, it's all about the information. And as you know, I'm trying to get monetized, so the show's got to get put in. So whether anybody's here or not, we're still going to do this. All right, folks, sit back for a second. We'll go ahead and get started in just a moment. All right, what's going on, folks? So again, we don't get anybody in here. We know that the replay gang normally comes through. All right, so the topic for tonight's discussion, you can see it already scrolling down here, the FBA detriment we've cultivated. And when I talk about the detriment we've cultivated, I'm talking about how FBA has been allowed to roam around for the last 6 or 7 years and not really be challenged too much. Again, we've all heard the rhetoric that FBA considers themselves to be the blueprint, that they built America, that they are responsible for any advances that have occurred here based upon pretty much their auspices. Now, you've heard me say this on TikTok, you've heard me say this on YouTube, and I will continue saying so. FBA has no history, they have no legacy, they have no icons, they have no lineage. Any and everything that they do have, they are taking from someplace else. As I said before, this is nothing more than culture vulture behavior that we see enacted upon their own culture, but to also include trying to claim indigenous status. And for that piece of the conversation, I'm going to have Cassandra come up and have that discussion with us. But before I go any further, let me go ahead and make her a part of the conversation right now. All right, Cassandra, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
All righty. Thank you for being here. Like I said here, folks normally amble in a little bit 10, 15 minutes after the show gets started because right about now, a lot of the folks that I talk with or try and have a conversation with are over on other panels. But again, as I said, if they show, they show. If they don't, the whole idea here is to make sure that people know what we're here to talk about. And again, today is going to be the FBA detriment we've cultivated. And one of the things that Mac was going to discuss was the pretending issue that we have. So before we go any further, would you like to introduce yourself and give everybody a little bit of a background on what you do? Because again, this is going to be important if I'm able to get you to come back later so we can do this again.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Cole. I am from the Dene Nation, which is the Navajo Nation. My reservation is Lepton, Arizona. What I do, well, specifically on TikTok, is I inform people, firstly, that what they're doing is a federal crime per the Indian Arts and Crafts Act. Well, 144, I think 106, I can't remember right now. And I actively report them, and I have a following of other people who help report them to the BIA to stop the misinformation and false identity theft.
So we're talking about at this point in time where people's asses are going to jail for playing the pretending role. Is that a best way to put it right now?
Yes, that is pretty much what is going on right now since I got involved. I initially got started because I was making my own TikToks, you know, just messing around, doing the AI stuff, and I had people come into my TikTok reels and start calling me racist slurs. I had no idea what was going on until I looked further into it, and this just all happened June 9th is when I was like, you better leave me alone because you don't know what what mayhem I can cause.
So if I can ask real fast, when did you first hear the term foundational Black Americans?
That was, again, June 9th. I was completely in my own little TikTok world. I didn't really have a whole lot of following. I really didn't go live. And it wasn't until they came into my one of my reels about my grandparents or something and saying that they're going to take my grandma's regalia and I'm a Husky and I'm from Siberia, like out of nowhere. Like I legit was minding my own business and
Oh, well, so one of the things that that the foundational Black Americans like to do is to take credit or to claim what they don't have. So this whole thing about Siberia is, again, a fact that is old school, but they want to challenge. So what a lot of them are like to try and harp on is that, oh, well, you're not indigenous to the land. You're from Siberia. What they don't realize is that the Native American folks 15,000 years ago crossed the Bering Straits and came into North America. However, during that course in time, Native Americans are the indigenous folks of America because there was nobody here upon arrival 16,000 years ago.
Well, if you update your information, you'll see that the landmass theory was debunked due with the find in White Sands, New Mexico, which is on my reservation. Mm-hmm. They found footprints embedded into the rock that dates it to Pangea.
And this is stuff that they do not know, which is why I thought to myself at the last minute, you know what? It'll probably be good having Cassandra be a part of this to help dispel some of this myth from these guys.
Yeah, it's right there. It's a whole national park. Whenever I do tell them about it, they try to type in, I guess, White Sands, Mexico, and not New Mexico, because they don't know New Mexico is part of the United States.
Nobody ever said that FBA was bright. Nobody ever said that was right.
Yeah, so if you look up that, there's actually a column in the Berkeley website college where they're explaining all of that it used to be a wide thing that they thought the Pangea, before the Pangea, the ice landmass, whatever, was like 14,000 years. Pangea puts it at 23, with the Native Americans in my area being there for 23,000 years. And then we have the tar pits that have footprints with the dinosaurs, paleoglyphs that are connected to the Navajo people in those caves on a petrified forest where the meteor hit that started the whole thing to wipe out the dinosaurs. There's like mountains of evidence that the Native Americans have been here for thousands of years.
And this is the type of information that I tell people, which I probably need to go back and do here because I forgot to do this. But I always tell folks, don't get upset when you hear something that you're not familiar with. It doesn't mean that somebody is lying. So here's what I normally have people do, or I should be doing at the beginning of the show. So I have them put their fingers up and put it in a circle. And so then it goes like this. Inside of this circle exists my anecdotal, lived experiences and exposures. Just because John says something I'm not familiar with doesn't mean I'm an idiot or John is lying. It just means this is a topic I am unfamiliar with. And once we put that there, we're pretty much level set. That means that any information that's being shared, such as you shared right now, is not you telling lies. It is someone unfamiliar with what you know and you're sharing it. But at the same time, you've provided the information where people can go back and look for themselves. So again, there's a lot that I tell folks I do not know. I will research if I'm unfamiliar. If I hear something for the first time that I am unfamiliar with, hopefully information is given to where I can go look for it and validate in the later show. So again, I appreciate you dropping that bit of information for the most part, because Not a lot of people are going to hear this. And as I said, right about now, it's just you and I. But the good thing here is that it's still going to be recorded. So when I put it back out, you can bet it's going to be flooded by folks, especially by your FBA folks. So tell me this though, if I can. So what was it that annoyed them the most about you giving them information that clearly they probably have not researched, that they've never heard in school, and that they're not going to unless they hear it from someone who is Native American?
What, how I got under their skin was the whole getting people to report them to the BIA, spreading awareness of the American Arts and Crafts law and the online harassment laws, and sharing links on how to help take them down. And then I've been taking down accounts and lives and a bunch of stuff. So like they got AIs of me has a rat, and I'm usually a backdrop of their panel. The rat one's cute. I look cute.
Wait. So they're depicting you as a. Why are they? See, normally, when people are depicted as a rat, it's because they snitched, they told on somebody. You're not snitching on anyone. You're pretty much saying that, hey, stop lying. This is not yours. So I don't know why. See, even context, these folks don't understand.
Well, it's the reporting them to the BIA is where they're getting mad at, because a lot of them tell me, well, we've been doing it for so long and nothing's happened so far. And I'm like, because nobody has been reporting you guys. Nobody has been checking you. Nobody has been informing you. And then they try to tell me that I'm harassing them, because like that's the first thing I say is like, that's a federal crime. You can't be doing that. And then they're like, you're online harassing. And I'm like, no, I'm doing my legal obligation to inform you first, and then I report you.
All right, so we're playing this game. We're feigning attack. Obviously, they're trying to play the victim. Funny enough, what kills me with FBA is that on the other side of the coin, anytime you refute anything about what they're saying and claiming that, stop playing the victim, they always want to claim the victim or shame the victim, but no one ever takes the victimizer to task for accountability. And it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm holding them accountable for their actions.
And that is exactly what I'm talking about. So that's why my name is John Henry. John is my actual name, but Henry is something I came up with as an acronym for holding every nationality responsible, y'all. And that's exactly what needs to happen. They need to be held responsible for this nonsense that they're getting away with. Because as I said before, if no one is here checking them, you're going to always have FBA roaming about freely claiming that, I've got Cherokee in my family. That means that I am Native American. No, the hell it does not. I had a conversation back and forth, matter of fact. I shouldn't call it a conversation, but I gave a beat down to someone named Jody Jojo. And we went back and forth at one point in time, whereas she wanted to try and make an issue out of the fact that I made a simple statement, which is true. There is Cherokee indigenous ancestry in my family that I have, but I am not indigenous or native indigenous. I am not. And there's a difference. And that's the one thing that I try and tell these FBA clowns, that there's nothing wrong with someone saying that, yes, they may have Cherokee, they may have Choctaw, they may have Iroquois or ancestry, but they are not indigenous status. And I'm sure you get the difference, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And see, the whole enrollment thing with Native Americans, we don't really, like, if you, let's say your great-great-grandma was Cherokee or whatever, and you're not, but you grew up in the tradition, you grew up, making the food, you grew up on the land, your language, your culture, all of that. We don't care if it was great-great-great-great-grandpa, great-grandma, or whatever. You are part of the tribe because you are there. And that's how a lot of tribal members do get their enrollment, because of their connection to the tribe, the connection to the history, the connection to the culture, the language, all of that. And it's not just DNA that determines that, it's who you know in your tribal area. Like, you can't just roll up to, like, Chickasaw Nation and then go in there and be like, oh, I'm Chickasaw, enroll me. They're going to be like, well, who's your people? What's the language? What part are you from? What part is your family from? They don't have none of that. So they're just going to be looked at like, what's this person doing?
It's almost like saying, who you with? Who's your family?
Yeah, name it who your family is. And that's one of the reasons why when they do come at us Native Americans, we ask them that, what's your language? What's your culture? Who's your family? Where's your reservation?
All right. So at that point, what type of nonsense starts coming back when you give them the third degree, which is not the third degree, but that's just basic questions. If you claim it to be this, you must know this. So how does it normally go down when you start, pardon my language, getting in their ass with this nonsense?
Oh, they deflect a lot. They won't answer questions. They won't tell you. They use the YT, stole our culture. That's why we don't remember we got erased our culture and our history. And then they try to say, this is a crazy one. They try to say that the Native Americans like me were shipped here from Spain, but they were never shipped out, but we were shipped here.
Right. Oh, snap. Okay, I'll clear that one. I'll please continue. I'll go ahead and clear that up right now. Again, like I said, this is why I really needed you to be here for this. But please go ahead and continue.
Yeah, they're saying that we were shipped in from other places. And I don't know if you know about the Native American boarding school, the Kill the Indian, Save the Child Act that was in place, where they put hundreds of thousands of children into boarding schools to assimilate and, wipe them of their culture. They're saying that was actually used to teach us how to be Native American and completely disregarding the 50,000 unmarked children's graves that are being tested DNA-wise to be reconnected to their tribe. That's another reason why we tell them that the DNA test does matter, because those unmarked graves that are being found, that's how they're getting returned back home, is through DNA.
I'm still tripping over the fact that they're trying to say that, oh, they shipped you guys over here. All right, there was shipping, but wait a minute. I'm going to get that cleared up here in just a second. Funny enough, Mac just showed up, so let me do this. Give me a second. I'm trying to get him on right now. Send him the link. So I'm just letting them know that we're going. Here's a link. You can join my panel. I should have explained to him that I wasn't talking about doing this on TikTok. Cassandra and I are already here. Ready here. Pull up. All right, so with any luck here, Max should be joining us in just a second. So the whole thing of discarding the graves, discarding the schools and everything, this is generally what you'll see. I'll call this the FBA gloss over, because what happens, what you did is you caught them short with some internet searching that they couldn't do because they weren't aware of it. So because of the fact they weren't aware, now they've got to scramble. And when they start scrambling, that's of course when they start lying. So this whole thing of them trying to say, oh, they shipped you over here. No, they did not ship Indians over here. Now, the way that this works, and I guess this is how I was going to pretty much start things out anyway. But what people don't realize is that the African continent, people on that, we have been traded for over a millennia. A lot of folks in FBA have no idea or concept that the first people to actually slave Africans out of Africa were the Arabs. The Arab slave trade was the very first, starting around the 7th century or so. This came around the time when the Arabs invaded Africa. And then from there, the Africans who were converted over to Islam invaded Iberia. And Iberia at the time in the 7th to 8th century was Spain and Portugal. But again, at the time, it was called Iberia. So what you have here now is that when we conquered that continent, that's exactly what it was. People in history know that, oh, it was the Muslims that conquered Iberia. No, it was not the Muslims. It was Africans who had been converted to Islam. But that information is always obscure. But you see what I'm saying here, right? Whereas they don't want to give credit to say that, oh, a bunch of blacks came across the waters and conquered Europe. That's something that they don't want to say. But moving forward here is that by the time we're looking at slave trading that kicks off, there are two distinct legs of it. First was the slave trade that was done primarily by the Spaniards and by the Portuguese. So going back a little bit here, I'm not going to throw too much in here because I want to make sure I leave a little bit of room for when Mac comes up here. But what you have here is that the Spaniards and the Portuguese were actually taking Africans from Africa to Spain. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. There was even a slave trade that existed between Europe and Africa. And that was the Spaniards taking Africans to Spain. So you have a whole black culture that existed over there that no one really knows about here in America, because when you talk about history, and especially if it's discussed, if you discuss slavery, it's always the European perspective that's given. No one ever talks about the perspective of the people who endured it. So getting to that, so you've got blacks who are in Spain, who are, again, as slaves, serving the Spaniards and the Portuguese. Primarily, we'll stick with the Spaniards right now. So Christopher Columbus embarks on his journey. He gets to Little Haiti thinking that he's gone all the way to the West Indies, which no, he has not. But everyone still likes to push this lie that Christopher Columbus discovered America. He was nowhere near America. Anyone who has actually gone through history after grade school or high school knows this. So what we get now here is that in 10 years' time of them being inside of La Española, or Haiti is what it became, they have come and met the Tano Indian tribe, but I believe it's the Creole tribe that's there also. Within a decade, they have all but decimated this entire population. We're talking about going through 85 or 90% of the population. And of course, this is an economy that they're trying to grow. So I'll break it right there before I go any further and just ask if you have any questions right now, Cassandra.
No, I don't.
All right. So
I would like to add, though, there is a museum. There's a museum in Dutch. It's the Dutch Museum. They do have the slave ship boats there because they feel bad about that whole thing happening because they were a part of that transatlantic slave. So they have a museum dedicated just for that. A lot of them don't know about that either. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for adding. Now they will. Hey, I'm telling FBA right now, if you got smoke, hey, you know where I am. Come find me. So going forward, you're talking about 85 to 90% of the Tano Indian tribe wiped out. But at the same time, Christopher Columbus is being sneaky because he's also dealing with the Portuguese behind the back of the Spaniards. And Queen Isabella, if I recall the learnings right from Dr. John Henry Clark, was rather fond in a way of, not fond romantically, but fond of the exploits of Christopher Columbus. Now, she was a lot of his backing. Christopher was playing under the table and also trying to cut himself some deals with the Portuguese. But the problem is that at a point in time, the gold and riches that he thought he was going to find amongst the Tano Indians, he did not get. He did not find anything that he was looking for, but they were still putting money into this economy. So what he did is that he was actually shipping the Tano Indians to Spain. Those were the Indians that were going to Spain, not coming from Spain. No Indian was ever shipped from Spain to the New World because they weren't any there. So to make up for the riches and things that he had not brought in that was promised, he started sending or shipping some of the Tano Indians, the ones that were left, to Spain to be slaves. So that's where FBA has got this shit wrong. Pardon my language, but got this mess wrong. That's backwards. But again, we see the damage when people fail to realize that the mind's a terrible thing if left uncultivated. So as a result, what ended up happening, because the Tano tribe had been wiped out just to the point of almost extinction, that's when they took the Africans that they'd taken from Africa and brought to Spain. They were then shipped to the New World to replace the Tano and the Creole Indians. So that's how we got blacks over to the Western Hemisphere, because they were sent to replace the Tano Indians. And because of the fact that the Africans had spent some time, a couple of centuries or so, around the Europeans, we're talking going back to 332 BC, when Alexander the Great came into Africa and conquered Egypt. The diseases that the Europeans had weren't as detrimental to the Africans as they were to the Tano Indians, who were experiencing the culture of the, I call them the European invaders, for the first time. So here's where your story starts to come in, Cassandra. So another thing that FBA is not aware of, and if they are, there's only a few, and they sit more or less at the top of the chain of the ignorance, is that there were a few times that the Spanish tried to bring colonies up and running inside of the Americas. Now, Florida is probably one of the places where they were successful with the colony. I can't think of the name right now, but that's one of their larger colonies. But there was a colony that was attempted somewhere between Georgia and Alabama, whereas I want to say it was around 1526, something da Gama. The name escapes me right now, but I'll have to go back and put that in the chat, or at least put that in the notes a little bit later. What you had happen is that there was famine, there was disease, but also the 100 Africans that they brought revolted. So this is considered to be the very first revolt or slave revolt in the United States. And again, it escapes me, like I said, folks, but look up failed Spanish colony in 1526, and it will give you the name. So what ended up happening is that the Africans who had revolted, all 100, were abandoned and left in the North Americas. And the Spaniards went back to La Española. So now what you have here are 100 Spanish-speaking Africans who are left in a new country. And so these folks now move off and start integrating with any of the indigenous populations that are there. Hence, that's where we first start looking at this aspect when people say, oh, we were here before the English. Yes, you were here. Or should I say we were here before the English, but we were brought here as slaves by the Spaniards. So I'll go ahead and drop that right there for you, Cassandra. Any questions?
Nope. I do know that the Spanish did try to come down to where my tribe and area was at and enslave us, down by New Mexico, but it didn't happen. We fought them, and then right after we got done with them, that's when the Europeans came and then tried to remove us.
Yep. So that is something that people seem to miss and don't realize, is that there were two legs of the transatlantic slave trade, and and where, we'll say, our story as far as African-American, because that's what we are, regardless of how FBA likes to phrase it or get upset about it, we are African-American. I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go along here. Matter of fact, let me see what's going on here with Matt, because he said it'd be a couple of minutes. Okay, he's probably working on something in the background. So as it stands, when I hear blacks trying to say, oh, hey, man, blacks, we're indigenous of North America, it's like, no, the F you are not. And I said this on the show the other night that I did with a couple of folks that happened to come up with me. America does not sit in an equatorial or tropical zone. So because of the fact that America does not sit in a tropical zone, There is not a high level of UV ray that results in the melanation that you see in my skin. But Africa does sit in an equatorial zone. I mean, this is just straightforward science. So when you look at where Africa is as compared to North America, there is no reason why anyone would even believe or even fix their mouth to say that, oh yeah, man, we were here first. We were here before the Europeans. Well, yeah, there is some truth to that. Now, there's a book Dr. Ivan Ben Sertima had written back in the 70s that talked about how the Africans actually did visit North Americas 200 years prior. But the thing here is that we did not stay. As a matter of fact, I think they actually hit down in the Caribbean area because of the fact that Christopher Columbus had a guy who was taking notation, who was keeping track of what was being discussed between them and the Indians. And they spoke of how there were dark-skinned folks who came from the South. They came dressed in extravagant clothing, or at least then what was considered extravagant clothing, and they had gold-tipped spears. Now, funny enough, again, this happened 200 years prior, but this is 200 years, prior before Columbus. And when the research was done and studied, it was found to be that in Central Africa, the Guinea region, these were the people who had actually visited the Indians in the New World. And one of the things that marked that was them having gold-tipped spears. So when you hear FBA talk about, oh yeah, we've been here, we've always been here, that's them distorting the story, not only of Dr. Ivan Ben Sertima's, we came before Columbus, but also mixing up the Spanish colonies that failed. Somewhere between those two stories of they came before Columbus and the failed colonies of the Spanish in North America, in America specifically, blacks somehow became indigenous. Your thoughts?
Well, see, part of the problem with that is when they're trying to say that all of us Native Americans knew about each other. We all knew our names. We all knew, because even before they came, we still did powwows, and we call it GenZ, where we got together, even other tribes got together, and we would share stories or, marry people off to go off with other tribes and stuff. Not once was there ever one story about a black tribe, or they would have a name.
Perfect. Again, like I said, this is why I wanted you to hopefully be here, and you are, to go ahead and dispel some of these myths that float around. By the way, I've got Beat Active here. Again, hey, Beat Active, thanks for showing up. Because we haven't kept our foot on the gas, or dare I say, we didn't keep our foot on the gas after the Civil Rights Movement. Now, at that time, when the Civil Rights Movement had come to pass, the FBA claiming to be indigenous, that's when I noticed I started seeing this word pretending that started popping around. So when I first heard of FBA, it was probably about a year or two ago. I can't remember what panel that I was on, but it was in this Black conservative space that at the time I didn't realize. And the conversation that was going around was talking about, we've always been here, and it's because of the work or foundation of Black Americans that America has become what it is. And by the time I started asking questions, I'd already fallen into being around, and I'll call it what it is, just a cult. Now, I didn't accept a lot of what was being said because I've been to school. And I'm not bragging here, but I've been to school, I've been educated, high school degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree. Now, I'm not saying that I know everything, but I do know wrong when I hear it. And when I heard someone saying that Malcolm X was foundational Black American, that's when the alarm started going off. Now it got even worse when I heard someone saying, "Yeah, man, people don't seem to realize that as foundational Black Americans, we built this country. We were here before the settlers got here," and that's what kind of took things to a toll. Again, so Sandra, when you first heard of FBA, could you repeat here, because I know Beat Active just got here, but could you let them know how you came to be acquainted with FBA? Beat Active, you got to hear this.
So I was just on TikTok making my own reels, minding my own indigenous self, and all of a sudden on some stuff with my grandma and my culture, I had people go on there and tell me they're going to take my grandma's regalia because it's theirs. I'm a Husky, I'm a Siberian, just like some other stuff. And at first I was like, what the heck? Like, leave me alone. Don't bother me. And then they kept coming. And then I started informing them that what they were doing was a federal crime because I already know that law. And then it just took off from there.
Yeah. So the crazy thing here is, again, you're going to denounce your own culture, your own heritage, then make up a culture and claim that we are a lineage. But the thing is that in order to claim that you are a lineage, you have to have a direct connection to an origin. So as I told folks, the problem here that FBA doesn't seem to have is that you don't have an origin. When you denounce your African heritage, you pretty much marooned yourself. So again, by definition, when you talk lineage, that means that you have a direct and constant connection to an origin story. And again, when FBA said that we're not African, they cut themselves off. And the example that I give for this is saying that what you've done is like woke up on an island where no boat got you there, but also there's no boat to take you away. So you're pretty much marooned. It's like, where do you get this logic from?
No, some of them say they came through a portal in the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon, again, is on my reservation. Yeah. And then they say stuff like certain parts are closed off because the Native Americans are hiding stuff. No, it's because we have monuments and ruins back there and sacred areas. And like, if you are part of the tribe that has that area closed off in the Grand Canyon, you can only go in there during certain ceremony times. But there is no portal. Oh, they said that there's Egypt somewhere in there in the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is Egypt.
Wait. FBA jumped you as of June of this year, got upset with you because you are giving the true account of Native American heritage, because you are Native American, tell you that you're false, call you all types of names, but then somewhere along the way they try and say that Egypt is in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, it's nuts. That's again why I don't really debate none of them on TikTok, because it's kind of like a weird schizophrenic psychosis loophole. I don't know if you ever dealt with one of those people at the bus stop, but like
the bus stop.
You can tell that person that whoever they're talking to is not there or real, but they will still talk to that person. I feel it's like the same. Or like my other example is that Shaggy song, that one that wasn't me. You know, when you showing them the facts and they're like, oh no, that's not true. I feel like they're that song.
So the crazy part here is that my background, both my degrees are in psychology, for the most part, and I'm working on my doctors right now. I'm kind of off taking a break from things, but when I listen to these folks say this stuff, it's like the most grandiose ridiculousness, and it's like they are all in some type of group phase of idiocy. If you watch Star Trek, they talk about the Borg, where you have this FBA collective of stupidity, where no one talks to the other, and they all come out with this most crazy idea of, oh well, we are FBA, we've always been here. our people came over from such and such, and then we were responsible for building the country. But they never give you a specific example of what they've done. Never.
Or a source, or a link, or a full page, or a full paragraph.
It's always something thrown together. And what I did, I went out and grabbed a couple of things and took some copies, or like some screenshots. So let me go ahead and bring this up here for you guys. Since we're not doing music today, this is not a music show, I want to go ahead and do this without the audio. So let me know if you can see this. I don't know if it's large enough to be seen. Is that better? Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So this goes back to the conversation that you and I had had a little bit earlier, where I was explaining to folks, at least I think the name Jody Jojo or something. Again, FBA foolery. So we had gotten back and forth into something about her ancestry, her heritage, some type of nonsense about blacks, African-American wasn't on the census, this type of nonsense, just round and round. And somewhere along the way, somebody had mentioned, well, Jesse Jackson said that he was Indian, so that doesn't make any sense. And I had to actually go out and grab information showing that, just like myself, Jesse Jackson has Cherokee ancestry, but he is not indigenous status, the same as me. And you already explained that to folks. Matter of fact, before I go through this again, could you explain to everyone again, Cassandra, of how people will go about claiming indigenous status?
Your connection to your people, well, with the government, it's blood quantum, and that usually goes off of what relative your mom or your dad is already enrolled, and then they go from there. But to claim that, like, if you don't have paperwork, if you're in court and you have to show that you're Native American, the ways that they do it is through your connection to the land, the connection to the people, the connection to the culture, the food, and the language.
Did everybody catch that? Do you understand now? You just can't wake up and decide that because your grandmama said that, oh, baby, we got Indian in our family, all of a sudden you are indigenous. It does not work that way. So based upon the statement that I made and based upon what Cassandra has put out here, let me go ahead and read this now. So I typed in, define the difference between showing familial cultural awareness of indigenous ancestry versus falsely claiming indigenous ancestry. So this is what I got back. Familial cultural awareness respects family history without claiming tribal membership, whereas falsely claiming ancestry, often called pretendianism, and yes, this came back, often called pretendianism, adopts a fraudulent identity for personal, social, or material gain. Ms. Cassandra, would you like to add anything to that?
Yep. One thing that they don't know is when you become a content creator, that is obtaining a job illegally if you have on there that you are American Indian or Native American. So that goes against the Indian Arts and Crafts Act. So
please go ahead.
Yeah, that becomes a federal crime. And with TikTok, it varies. I guess once you're able to go live on TikTok, you automatically become a digital creator.
And if anyone is wondering about the Indian Arts and Crafts Act, I typed this in earlier in the chat, but here it is again, where you can actually go and look and see for yourself. Indian Arts and Crafts Act, Public Law 101-644. So recognize something here, pretendians. Y'all asses can go to jail for this.
Yes, I think the minimum fine for some of the stuff that they are doing is $250,000 and 5 years in federal prison. The highest fine is $1.5 million and I think 21 years in prison, and it's based on per count. Now, since they are a group that admit all the time that there are millions of them across the nation, it actually turns it into the RICO Act. So that's another federal crime. And then claiming American Indian while getting digital creator job, you're doing IRS fraud on top of that.
Oh, snaps. So we're talking about just mounting up all types of charges by simply claiming that, oh, well, my family's got Cherokee, so therefore, I'm indigenous to the land. That little bit right there, we're talking, at least 3 to 5 years right off the bat.
Yep. And then the spreading of misinformation is in the part that is part of the cultural integrity part of that arts and crafts law. It's reworded a few times because it covers the identity, the regalia, the misuse of symbols, which is all things that they do when they're flapping their turkey feathers around and rubbing flour on themselves and doing weird chants. They're actually doing another federal crime, and they're putting it to where we can see it. So,
and all this came about back in June. Were you just providing information to folks?
Yeah. Yep. See, and I only know about that law because my family is like silversmiths and painters and stuff, and it was a huge big old deal in 1990 when it got passed, and I was living on the reservation. So that's how I first learned of this law, and oh boy, is it handy now.
So you actually have a blunt object to take back to folks.
Yes. And it's super easy. Okay, the other thing is you do not have to be Native American to report them. And all you really need is screenshots, tag names, the link to their profiles, and then you just write it into the BIA website.
Well, since we are having this conversation, and hey, I tell people all the time, facts don't choose sides. People do. And you have brought facts. Matter of fact, woman, let me go ahead and put the receipts down to what you're saying. All right. So okay. FBA, if you're out there, hey, you may watch from the clouds. You may catch this in the replay, but you best believe when I clip this up, I'm going to make sure you guys see this. So based on what Cassandra's provided, here's the Indian Arts and Crafts Act 101-644. The Indian Arts and Crafts Act of 1990, as she just stated, Public Law 101-644, is a truth in advertising law that makes it illegal to offer, display, for sale, or sell any art or craft in a way that falsely suggests it was made by Native Americans. All right, key rules. Definition of Indian applies to members of federally or officially state-recognized tribes or certified Indian artisans. Covered items covers all traditional and contemporary arts and crafts produced after 1935. Prohibitions bans falsely using a specific tribal name or labeling machine-made imitation goods as authentic native made. Penalties. All right, here comes the good part. Individuals, first-time offenders face civil or criminal penalties, including up to a $250,000 fine, a 5-year prison term, or both. For businesses, companies face civil penalties or criminal fines up to $1 million. Enforcement, managed by the Indian Arts and Crafts Board, which can refer counterfeit cases to federal law enforcement. FBA pretendians, do you understand what's being said right now? Cassandra, you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
You should type in there the cultural integrity, because that's where it covers misinformation, misuse of regalia, and the stolen of identity to obtain jobs.
You saying what the cultural, what was that again?
It's under that act. It's still under that law, but the specific part is called cultural integrity. It's still under that law, though.
Okay, so let me do this. We'll do that plus cultural integrity.
Yeah, and it's reworded like 3 or 4 times so it covers the identity theft, the spread of misinformation, the misuse of symbols and regalia, and the misuse of ceremonies.
Impact fraud prevention. The Indian Arts Craft Act 1990, Federal Truth and Advertising Law protects American Indian and Alaskan Native cultural integrity by prohibiting the misrepresentation. Yeah, so I'm not getting too much from right here as an add-on. But obviously I know it's there. Maybe I'm just not finding it with this particular search.
I sent you the one links in TikTok.
Okay. Let me do that here. We'll go in the back.
Or not the links, but like the screenshots that I had.
I'm going back.
Because one of them I Googled, is misinformation part of the Indian Arts and Crafts Act? And then it says like, yes, it is. The spread of misinformation is part of that. And then I clicked the link or whatever.
Let me see if I can reproduce. All right, yep, that was a whole. Let me see here. We're going to go off the beaten path for a second. So let me see if I can go to my TikTok and see if I can find that. Messages. Sandra. It's nuts. Wait. Because I'm looking at it, I can see it. You know what? I can't show it on my computer. Okay, yeah, I can't get to it on my computer. So let's try this. Let me see if I can just type it in. So are you able to send it to me in the private chat here in the background, and I'll post it? The information that you sent me that I've got on my phone that I can't bring up on my computer. If you shoot that through, I'll see if I can bring that up right here. Fraudulent authenticity claims. Or let's try this. Oh, by the way, if you're speaking, Cassandra, you're on mute.
Where is it?
So,
I forgot what I was saying. I don't know how to do the private chat because I'm not logged into my YouTube, so it's not letting me do private chat. Only the.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and just wing this for another couple of minutes here. And I'm just going to look at what you've got here on the screen on my phone and see if I can bring it up here. There, is this looking more like what you were talking about here? It's kind of close to it. It's not the full thing, but it's giving me some information based on what you had sent up here.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if I have the pictures in this other phone.
So fraudulent authenticity claims are false statements businesses make to trick people into believing a product is real, green, natural, or officially approved. Key examples include fake reviews, phony eco-friendly labels, and false origin tags. Let me see if I can get even more specific. Fraudulent authenticity claims plus indigenous peoples. Here's a little bit more. Fraudulent authenticity claims and commercial misinformation involving indigenous peoples involve false marketing of arts, crafts, and business identities, such as non-indigenous companies exploiting procurement programs or selling fake cultural goods. So under the commercial exploitation and fake goods heading, cultural appropriation, mass-produced items like dream catchers, moccasins, and art are frequently sold by non-indigenous makers using false tribal labels. Does that sound about right? What FBA is doing?
Yeah, that's some of it, but also, um, I'm trying to remember how I worded it. I know it's in this thing. Let me see if I can split screen real quick.
Now, worst case scenario, as I said before, if we don't get it all in today, I think we're going to have to do this again because Mac owes me some time. But I'm glad that you were here to at least fill it up with some information that even I wasn't aware of. So, hey, this still works. There still are indigenous tribes that had never been contacted in Latin America. Now, funny enough, BDAC used to bring this up. So you had back in 1975, there's a group of Indians called the Panari Indians. So the Panari Indians happened to have been on television. There was a news story that was being done, and someone from the Roman Catholic Church happened to see this. So of course, what they do is they send their emissaries forward to speak the word of the fictional individual known as Jesus Christ. And the emissaries get out there. And of course, after getting familiar with the folks, they start this thing of, well, you know that you guys are responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. You guys are going to go to hell for killing him. And the Indians are like, who? Jesus, who? What are you talking about? There's no white man that's been here. Well, the crazy thing here is that they had no words for sin. They had no words for hell or crucifixion. None of that worked. So as a result, the emissaries are in a bit of a bind. Now, if you don't know, there is a program, I think it's called the Evangelical Teacher Training Association. And the only reason that this came to my mind, and I knew about this, is because Dr. Ray Hagins, who does a lot of deconstruction, because he used to be caught up, as he said, in the false words of the Bible for 25 some odd years. And when he got himself free, he made it a thing that he wanted to ensure everyone else was pulled away from these lies. But the biggest thing about the lie here is that in order to get you saved, they have to get you lost. And that was something that the Roman Catholic Church folks couldn't do. The emissaries couldn't do that. They couldn't get the Indians lost because there was no words for hell, sin, or a crucifixion. So do you know what these cats did? They went back, stripped down, I want to say it was Genesis and a few other a lot of chapters. They completely stripped out and made up a new Bible specifically for the Panari Indians.
Can you see that?
Just a second, folks.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Let me see if I can. Let me do this. Let me take this off. All right. I can somewhat see that. A little bit too big. Okay. Yeah. Misinformation can be used to exploit Native American cultures for financial gains. Yeah, I can see that. Is there any way that you can email that? Maybe is there a link at top? Let me give you my email address.
Yeah. And then there's the identity fraud. That's the other one. It's still underneath the act. I have all of these. I have all the links.
We have the links. Arby's. John Henry. All right. We put this back here as well.
Can you see how my name is spelled?
Caussusandra?
Yeah, if you just email me with that at gmail.com, that's my email.
All right, stand by, folks. I've been saying your name, right? Is it am I saying your name right, Cassandra, or is there a different way that it needs to be said that I'm messing up?
It's Cassandra. It's just silent vowels.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm named after Elvira. I don't know if you remember that lady.
I do.
Yeah, her real name is Cassandra. She spells it different, but my mom really liked her, so she named me Cassandra instead of Elvira because she said Elvira is an ugly name, but she still liked her.
Used to stay up Friday nights watching that. So I was born in 1970, so yeah, I'm more than familiar with Elvira.
All right, I got it.
All right. So I'll just go ahead and finish this story out real fast here for everybody. So basically, as I said, folks, so again, the Evangelical Teacher Training Association has to get you lost before you can get you found. The emissaries didn't have a way to communicate Jesus Christ and the crucifixion, so they had to go back and make a whole new Bible. So when they showed back up to the folks and said that, oh, you killed Jesus, because of that, you are going to die in the big fire. You held him down on the ground and you nailed his feet to the piece of wood. And then all of a sudden, it's a different reaction. Oh, we don't want to die in big fire. What do we need to do? Therefore, by getting them lost and scaring them with the unknown that didn't exist, they now had new converts. That's pretty much how it works. And there'll be a show that I'll do specifically on that at some other time. All right. So that being said, now let's go back and take a look. Okay, I just got it.
I sent you two, I think, and one more. I don't know if this one's the same one.
Let's open link in new tab.
Like I said, when you actually go into that law and look into it, it's worded a bunch of different bunch of different ways, but it's mostly just under that cultural integrity part of that law. But it's reworded a bunch of different ways to cover everything, and it makes everything they're doing a federal crime. Besides the RICO Act part, that's all on their own. Well, all of this is all on their own, but yeah.
Bobby Brown, all on your own. Okay. All right, so this is that first link you sent to me. One of them, misinformation can be used to exploit Native American culture for financial gain. Cultural misappropriation. This involves taking elements of Native American culture and using them incorrectly or inappropriately, often for profit. Commercial exploitation. Bad actors may use false information to sell products or services falsely branded as authentic Native American goods. Financial harm. This exploitation can cause economic damage to Native American communities by undermining authentic businesses and artisans. Hey, say no more. I think there's more or less to the point here. Even so, I forgot, was it Chico? Is that who else showed up in the chat that I saw you show up in? Cassandra, do you recall that chat that I was having with someone? Miss Frost?
I don't know.
All right, so you guys showed up at an opportune time. So Miss Frost came in talking about you guys came from she was the one who said that you guys came from the West. She's talking about Africans, and then you settled, you came from somewhere and you settled in the West. You guys aren't real Africans. What are you talking about? I already said, girl, that I am not Native African. I'm African descendant, meaning that my ancestral home is Africa, thus making me African, although not Native, but still African descendant. So then she says, you don't know what you're talking about. My people have been here since the 1500s. You don't know what you're talking about. Then I told her, wait a minute, if you're going to try and say that your people here from the 1500s, but you're going to try and appropriate the story of the Spanish colonies that failed and left Africans here who integrated into the um, countryside. I will wear your ass up and down this chat if that needs to be the case. And then she dipped out of here as soon as I mentioned that, because when she said the 1500s, I guess she thought that I didn't know that the Spanish colonists had attempted to create a colony in the United States, or at least in the on the eastern seaboard, which failed. There were a couple that failed. She thought I wasn't aware of that, and she was going to try to appropriate that as her lineage. As soon as I told that to her, she disappeared. Not to mention, you had showed up in the chat, Cassandra, as well, and had made a couple of comments. And I told her, hey, if you want to say anything, you got smoke. I've got a couple of folks here from the indigenous population you can have this conversation with. And I haven't seen her reply back. So as best as I can tell, maybe she's come across you or some of your folks who've been letting them know that this is a crime that they're committing. Any comments before we move on?
And then I got one more that kind of clarifies, because they say, oh, it's freedom of speech. But there's a difference when you're talking about freedom of speech and historical facts on Native Americans. So I sent you one on, well, I sent you a bunch of links on different stuff, but that last one, that's what that one is. Let's see.
So what I can keep sending them to me, because what we're going to do here, we're going to close out here in a minute, but keep sending them. And what I'm going to do is when I go back and put everything together with the information I'm getting right now, I'm going to put that inside of the video, some of the links, and I'll make this accessible, excuse me, available, so people will be able to go back and follow it themselves.
Okay.
We go back. You say you sent. Okay, I've got one more link that you just sent.
It's probably my Wi-Fi is acting a little bit weird. So
that's fine as long as I get it by email. That works with me. All right.
I think you should have like five or six. Yeah.
Yep, I have got about 6. Perfect. All right, so Cassandra, I've got to go ahead and get on with the show, but I am so glad that you showed up. Woman, you do not know how this is good information to distribute. And I'm hoping that we can do this again, but thank you for taking the time to show up and provide this information, and best believe that you're going to see this once I get everything wrapped up again. Before you get out of here, man, is there anything else that you'd like to leave for anyone?
There's nothing wrong with being who you are. Everybody needs to find their culture, their identity. When it comes time for you to go home, your ancestors are going to try to meet you, and if you're denying them, you're going to miss out on a whole new world, possibly. So it connects you to your people, to your land, to just love yourself, who you are, and your culture. There's nothing wrong with it.
All right, ma'am. Thank you again, and I hope to hear from you, see you in chats. I'll make sure to follow you back as well. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your time, son.
All right, bye.
Hey, take care. Folks, I hope you enjoyed that segment. That was extended. I'm not sure where Matt got off to, but I'm glad that Sandra was here to help cover some grounds, because I've seen a lot of work that Audiolithic Mac has been doing regarding this pretendian outbreak that we're having. As I said before, it is maniacal that we have these folks who will denounce their African heritage, but then turn around and try and claim the heritage of someone else. Now ask yourselves, how ridiculous is that, right? I don't know how to put it any other way. But I missed a couple things from Beat Active here. That's exactly how colonization started in the Americas. It started with Christians forcing the indigenous to convert to Christianity. And those who didn't were condemned, punished, or de-alive. I'm going to go ahead and say it: killed, murdered, death. So going along with Be Active is also saying here is that another thing that people fail to realize about slavery is that for the first 100 years after the settlers had arrived, they had attempted to get the Indians to do the work that eventually the Africans were brought to do. So that part is not really discussed too much. It's almost glossed over, because when they talk about the Native Americans, they always want to talk about Thanksgiving, well, they made the pie, turkey, whatever else. That's all they talk about. Unless you go through further learning on your own or being around folks who will give you this information, they don't talk about the Indians that were locked up, who were converted to Christianity, as Beat Active is saying. These Indians were referred to as the praying Indians. And these are Indians who, just like Africans would soon be, were assimilated into Eurocentric culture. So the best way to gain control over the Africans as well as the Indians was to make them like the Europeans, which means that they had to strip away the culture, the heritage, the tradition. And once that's done, assimilate or reassimilate them into the Eurocentric culture in order for them to accept the ways, thereby thinking that this will make them less savage. This has been the same approach: rinse, wash, and repeat everywhere that the European explorers went. Now, I made this statement on another show. I'll make it again. No European country outside of Europe, when trying to expand their borders in different countries, ever had a modicum of success with these new economies outside of Europe without the subjugation, oppression, and enslavement of the native indigenous population. Not a single one. But yet you'll hear people say that, oh, the early explorers, they were conquerors. No, they were not conquerors. They were seafaring cowards at best. Because when these folks got to these new lands, they didn't get off the boats with their swords drawn, with the muskets held high, running into the beach because they saw a population there. No, they went into the beach, getting caught in woods, marshes, you name it. That's about what's going on, man. But they went into these lands where there are jungles, whatever, you name it. And when they did come across the indigenous population, they came out with their hands extended, their teeth showing, and a trunk full of garbage to convince them was valuable in order to get the resources that were there. So yes, when it comes to finding factual historical documentation, the DeepSeek app or web search is the best at that. So take some of this information down if you can, folks. Of course, there's going to be the video when it comes out, when this part of the replay. Replay gang, jump on it. Never trust Google AI. Funny enough, I have found some stuff that Google AI has made mistakes with. Now, I will never say that I won't trust it, but I will not take everything as a grain of salt, because again, if you still have access to actual books, people, you got to realize something. The internet is nothing more than a database. And what that means is if the information is not loaded, it is not accessible. But as what Beat Active is saying here, now again, I wouldn't say never trust Google AI, but I would say don't put your entire trust in it. Because for everything that may, the one or two things or more that might be wrong, there's a lot that is accurate. However, going back to what Beat Active is saying, you do have some shit that is absolutely wrong. But at the same time, remember, we're dealing with AI. Something else that AI will attempt to do is take information that you've provided and take it upon itself to fashion that information together and create a definition that was never part of your request. But it's going to be based upon what you did submit. Because remember now, AI, autonomous information. It is thinking for itself. So keep that in mind. Not everything that comes back is going to be accurate, but the majority, well, let me not even say the majority. You do find a level of accuracy that is found, provided that it's good information that has gone in. What you see is what you get, aka WYSIWYG. This is something they used to tell us old IT guys back in the 90s and 2000s. All right, from Hotspot, you see what Cristobal Colon wrote. Wait. Is this going back to some of the links that you had sent me the other day? I know we're a couple of seconds behind, but go ahead and let me know when you catch up. Matter of fact. No, it's not. Go ahead, break me off, man. What is it that this Cristobal Colon person wrote, man, if you could? Or better yet, did you want to come up here for a second? If so, let me know and I'll drop the link for your hotspot. Now, are you referring to Christopher Columbus? Yeah, I just caught on. Crystal, what'd you say? Cristobal. Oh, you just write it? Okay, cool. All right, there we go. Yeah, we covered some of the information here when Cassandra and I were talking about how everything connected with the Indians in Spain, because she had mentioned that FBA has showed up on her page around June or so. She was providing just basic information regarding the Indian and Crafts Act that we were discussing, and FBA rolled up on her, as she said, acting crazy, trying to say that she was not the real indigenous person, that she's something about being husky, as well as coming from Siberia, which there were acts that which did happen, but there's updated information that she provided that even I wasn't aware of or haven't had time to research, that we know FBA wasn't aware of. She gave them all this information and they're attacking her, accusing her of being racist. And the funny thing is, they are the ones trying to appropriate her culture. What's the madness in this, right? So what do we got? Christopher Columbus, Bahamas, Caribbean, 1492. Source, Journal of the First Voyage, quote, Saturday, October 13th, 1492. Their hair is coarse, almost like the hairs of a horse's tail, and short. They are not black, but the color of the Canary Islanders. Talking about the Tanos. Yep. So I think the Creole tribe was there also. CRIL. Sunday, December 16th. Quote, if they went about wearing clothes and protected from the sun and air, they would be almost as white as in Spain. Again, talking about the Tanos. Observation. This horsehair description became the standard comparison for centuries. Hotspot, is that something along the lines that you were talking about just a moment ago? But still, whatever you got, go ahead, drop it off in here, man. This is an information dump phase, it appears to be. Now, one of the other things that I also want to do was look at some of this nonsense we hear about lineage from FBA. Now, I've already broken this down a few times, but let's go ahead and still go a little bit further into this. He mentioned that the indigenous were without weapons and made to be slaves. Well, that is the mentality that was possessed by Europe. He mentioned that the indigenous were without weapons and made to be slaves. Of course, when you see that made to be slaves, now remember, I think I mentioned to you guys before, put a 1 in the chat if you've heard me mention that 1455 Pope Nicholas V had sanctioned the enslavement of Africans and anyone who did not worship Jesus and were considered infidels. Put a 1 in the chat if you guys have heard me say that. But this very statement right here, made to be slaves, this was only possible because, again, Pope Nicholas V had made this statement, or should I say made the decree in 1455, enslavement. But prior to that, I want to say 1453, you had the Dum Diversis that was already speaking about the potential of folks becoming slaves for failing to believe, again, in this fictional character, Jesus Christ. I may get the two backed up, but you had the Dum Diversis in 1452, 53 maybe, but then actually the decree by Pope Nicholas V in 1455 enslaving Africans and stealing Africa's resources, but for the most part saying that anyone who did not worship the fictional character Jesus Christ or believe in Christ were worthy of becoming slaves. Well, they actually did become slaves, and here is the wording right here. Okay, I thought I had mentioned that. All right, good. All right, so here's that FBA nonsense that we have been dealing with. The guys have been watching my chat and it shows it. So define the negative connotation of gamesmanship within the context of determining a fabricated group's non-existent lineage. I don't know why the question mark showed up when I did this, but so be it. So anyway, this is what I got back. The negative connotation of gamesmanship in this context reflects a win-at-all-costs mindset. It uses technical loopholes, deceit, and manipulation to fabricate historical legitimacy. So this is that nonsense that I get into with a lot of these FBA folks who like to say, we are a lineage. That needs to be understood. But the problem is that when they say that they are a lineage, they offer nothing else to sustain this. There's nothing substantiating this statement of we are a lineage. And as I said before, in order to qualify and be a lineage, you have to have a direct and continuous connection to an origin. And as I've stated, as Beat Active has made known, and Hotspot as well, when you denounce your African heritage, your lineage is gone. There's nothing there, which means that whatever you try and create in the moment does not qualify. That's more or less a footnote, barely even a footnote. You have no lineage, you have no culture, you have no history. But yet, funny enough, these same folks have turned around and now they're trying to claim that, well, actually, we are indigenous. We were here first. Now, I will give a little grace in the we were here, but I can't say first because, again, the Native Americans have always been here. So if you were here first before anyone, it would have been here before the English. I tried to, man. That's the most I can say. I tried to. There is literally nothing that I come up here and say if I have not read it in print and validated it first. Yeah, there is no wild styling up here because we are at that point now where our African American heritage is in jeopardy because of this FBA clownery that we're seeing here. I may take a minute and pull up another one of my TikTok streams and show you the mass amount of craziness that occurred over the weekend. But here, yes, Tanos were the first to be enslaved in the Americas by Europeans. And I actually had someone, believe it or not, man, who argued with me about this. I forgot who this white guy was, but he came up and stated that the Europeans never enslaved anybody in North America, ever. And he used that hard E, ever. But of course, you know, your boy, I had to go ahead, find the information, put it someplace where he could see it right back in the chat based upon his ignorance. And I haven't heard from him ever since. But the funny thing is that when you do the same thing with FBA, they'll discard it and continually going on with this fake origin story. But they never will provide any information. Well, shit, just the other day, Someone said, "Oh, so you expect us to believe you instead of Dr. Claude Anderson?" Whoa, we'll get back to that in a second because we got a lot going on in the background. I don't want to miss what the fellas are saying. Here's the direct quote, Cristobal Colon. They are without arms, all naked, and without skill at arms, and they are good to be ordered about, to be made to work, plant, and do whatever is wanted. Now that sounds like the mindset of a colonizer. More so, somebody who realizes that they can take control and dominate whoever that they are around. But keep in mind, they are without arms. Not arms and legs, folks, but obviously they are without munitions. They're without weapons. Now imagine what the mood would have been had it been different. Now, I said this on one of my streams. I believe I put it in one of my shorts. But the thing is that, again, once these seafaring cowards showed up, to which people confused them as being conquerors, and met the indigenous people and got to know them and became somewhat ingrained in the culture just enough to figure out how to turn folks against the other. One day, the chieftain or so may invite them into his domicile, whether it be a hut or whatever it is that is used to keep from the elements. And you'll find that these seafarers, these European explorers, will kill the host, rape the cook, which is the woman of the house, take any item that they feel that they can take because they are being who they are now, and burning whatever it is that they don't want. That was the process when you look at it. As I told folks in another show, the word Holocaust is not an ethnicity. You had a minimum of 4 stops that were made by the Europeans around the world. 4 stops. And as I said before, in each of these areas, they suppressed and enslaved the indigenous peoples. We're talking about the, of course, we know there was Africa. No, we're talking about the Belgian Congo, Tasmania, where they had the Black Wars, the Tano Indians. And we've talked about that with Christopher Columbus. The Creole Indians were there as well. Native American Indians. Also in India. All right, we're talking 5 different locations in the world where every place the European explorers went, as I said before, they suppressed and subjugated and enslaved the indigenous population. Oh, and there was violence as well. Now, if you recall, with King Leopold in the Belgian Congo, if the Africans did not reach a certain amount of the quota that was needed, then he chopped off arms, he chopped off legs, he chopped off hands, he chopped off feet. This is documented. Christopher Columbus did the exact same thing to the Tano Indian tribes. If they did not meet a quota, he hacked off limbs. This doesn't make it into a lot of the history books, folks. So I advise you to take the time. Once I mention anything to you, don't take my word for it completely. Make sure you go out and look it up yourselves. But also, you see that Hotspot and Beat Active are dropping knowledge right about here. The secret relationship between blacks and Jews, page 17. Thank you for that. Indigenous Americans have been in the Americas for more than 30,000 years, not 500 years like FBA, ADOS, pretending they're trying to make it seem like. Yes, for the same culture that Africans had in Africa, or Europeans probably had before they were first known in history, should I say known to Africans in history, would have been close to around 11 or 1200, 12 or 1100 BC. And I want to say it was the Iliad, Homer's the Iliad. That was probably the first thing that was the introduction that we knew as African peoples that they were here. But by this time, the pyramids were already in ruins. They were already deteriorating. But let me hold on to that. That's a different story. I don't want to drape off too far because we've pretty much cut our teeth as much as we're going to today. So what I want to do here is try and finish out some of these screen captures I've got. So going back to what I was saying about FBA claiming that they're a lineage. Now, all this stuff is just gamesmanship. Remember the other day when I told you guys that the name Foundational Black Americans, even that is gamesmanship. All right. Using the word foundational is nothing more than gamesmanship, wordsmithing, and semantics. Everybody knows that any and everything that was done by African Americans in the very beginning of when it was shown that, wow, they actually are intelligent, that is foundational. So the game is always to play, oh, well, so-and-so did this, and this was the foundation of XYZ. And then FBA turns around and says, hey, so-and-so is a foundational Black American because he is foundational in doing such and such. That's all this is, just wordplay. And because of this wordplay, that is how they always have a tendency to say that, well, this is something that a foundational Black American did. Oh, yes, he's FBA. No, he is not. I think I even had to clear this nonsense up the other night where someone tried to say that Dr. John Henry Clark was FBA. And we all know that that man, let me back up for a second. Anyone who is knowledgeable of their African studies and knows of Dr. John Henry Clark knows that he was a Pan-Africanist. He wanted to see the struggles of all Blacks be dissipated and see us in global unity, which unfortunately he was not able to see before the time of his death. Stand by for a second, folks. Let's see what we got. Tariq is the author of this indigenous bullshit, and how it started was by him hijacking Dane Calloway's movement by saying we are the indigenous people of America. Whoops. Which is bullshit. Speak on it. The FBA are foundational pseudo-delusional school dropouts. Yes, led by a high school dropout, none other than Tariq Nasheed. At this time, Yvette Carnell, Tone Talks, Michi X, and Dane Calloway were hot at the time in the Black community. Tariq hijacked all of them and poked fun of them during the first episode. Now, I remember something about Yvette Carnell. You know what? If you ever go to Morris TV, I'm going to have to make sure I include the links. GS had talked about how he had gone back and forth with Yvette because I believe Yvette was still part of the American descendant of slaves. But notice, even with the name American Descendants of Slaves, they omitted African American Descendants of Slaves because it's the same nonsense. Whereas, oh, we have nothing to do with Africa. We have our own distinct history. And this is something that Dr. Clark and including Dr. Joseph Binyakinen always hammered in. Like, damn it, no, you do not have your own specific culture. We are a culture. But the thing here is that by trying to create something that is slipstreamed into a narrow tunnel, all right, they're trying to put the whole experience of being slaves in America above everyone else, completely discarding that the slavery in Jamaica, the slavery in Haiti, the slavery in Africa, the slavery in America, it's all the same. It is still slavery. One thing that Dr. Clark used to say is that a racist was the best Pan-Africanist that he had ever seen. Reason being, it doesn't matter where you came from. To him, we were all niggas. The racist sees us all as being the same. And that is a true fact. Another fact he said is that when the boats brought Africans to the New World, there were no alphas, there were no kappas, there were no noops, there were no Democrats, there were no Republicans, there were no Masons, there was none of this. There were just Africans stolen or kidnapped from their homelands. Now, what used to irk the shit out of me when I would go to some of these panels is listen to everyone, even blacks, and these are the black conservatives. All right, the folks I refer to as being the white, bigoted, conservative, emotional support animals. But again, that's just me. But these folks will sit here and say, hey, you know what? There was slavery in Africa. But I noticed when I heard a black conservative saying this, he was speaking the same notes that the bigoted white conservative guy with him was saying in lockstep. And even if these guys aren't around each other, when I say these guys, I'm talking about the white conservative and the black conservative. The black conservative has already been ingratiated. He's been assimilated to this culture, whereas now he's speaking this nonsense. So when the issue of Africa comes up, now you already know, being FBA and a black conservative, there's no talking to this dude. There's no talking to any of them at this point. So you hear this thing is, I don't see why everyone is making a big deal of slavery, especially being that Africa had slavery. But see, that's the problem with this. They seem to think that all slavery was the same. Yes, there was slavery in Africa, but it was not chattel slavery. Chattel slavery did not come until you're talking about the arrival of the Europeans. I'm not talking primarily Alexander the Great. We're talking a little more after that. We're talking with the Spaniards and with the Portuguese. Now, granted, as I said before, a form of chattel slavery, which we'll call it what it is, was being engaged in the Indian Ocean when the Arabs started taking Africans from the African continent over to the Arabian Peninsula. As I said before, the Arabs were the first to take Africans out of Africa and put them on boats and take them to another distant land. But anyway, be that as it may, when you hear this oh, here we go. Yep. It's more of spoils of war servitude. Yes, exactly where I'm going with this. So as I was saying, in Africa, you had servitude, indentured servitude, and bondsmanship. So indentured servitude, like Hotspot just said, the spoils of war. If we went to war and we wipe out or we defeat your village, you are now a slave of the folks who won. So you had the defeat in war, you had theft, and then you also had debt. Those are the three main ways that a person would end up in indentured servitude. Then, of course, also, if there was work that needed to be done, someone couldn't get the work finished, and oh, hey, here you go. Take Mikey. Mikey will get this work done that you need, and so therefore, Mikey is pushed off into indentured servitude, or in that instance, it would be referred to as bondsmanship. All right, appreciate it. Be active. Now, again, folks, Beat Active and Hotspot, those are my measures right now. We have not discussed any of this information that I'm sharing here. So they may be hearing it from me from the first time, but they are already familiar with it. So look at this as being more or less that I'm collaborating, and folks are more or less saying, hey, John's telling the truth. All I'm doing is providing information out here that is there, folks, if you know where to look for it. And if you don't know, you can pick it up right here. So again, those are the ways that you would end up in indentured servitude, bondsmanship forms of slavery. Again, this was not chattel slavery. Now, here's the other part about the indentured servitude / bondsmanship. It would extend for 7 to 10 years, something along those lines. And at the end of that enslavement, you have the option to either stay with the community that you've been inside of for that 7 to 10 years. You could go back to your society, provided they were still there, if anything was left. You could also, let's say for the man of the house who you were enslaved by, you could become a part of his family, marry his daughter, and, you know, obtain land, whatever. You are now a part of the family. I got no reason to lie to you, folks. Facts do not choose sides. People do. Shout out there for keeping me honest, Hotspot. Now, all of this changed when the Europeans came through. They made contact with local tribes. One particular tribe, there was a king who needed to help another king and asked the Portuguese to take some of the indentured slaves down there, down the coast to this other king's kingdom. And from that point right there, that's where the misinterpretation came in place. This is where the Portuguese presumed, oh, you're into slaving like we are. See, the thing here is that up in I guess up in the centralized region of Africa, remember the Arabs had already been there since the 7th century. So we're talking about maybe around the 15th century, going into the 16th century. So you figure the Arabs have already been around for 800 some odd years in Iberia. But once they started losing control or were being forced out, they came back to Africa and then started enslaving the folks that had gone to war with them. Dr. Clark always talked about every ally that Africa had eventually turned on them. This would have been another instance. But nonetheless, the Portuguese had been doing business up north with the Arabs. So this little mistake by this particular king, by giving some of his slaves to the Portuguese to transport down the river, became the concept of, oh, we have slavery. Just a second, folks. Hey folks, yo, that was Rob there. He missed the notification. He may slide through about 10 or 15 minutes. But but so again, going back to that, the mistake of assuming that Africa was always chattel slavery. No, the Africans themselves, no, they did not preach and practice chattel slavery. It was brought into the country. So I hope I've made this clear. All right, even if I like it or not, I have nothing but respect for the facts, aka the truth. And that is why John got 100% of my respect, because John is the facts, aka the truth, which makes John my true brother. Beat actor, I appreciate that, man. Again, as nothing more liberating than understanding that people know that when they hear this bullshit out here, they know how to call it out and where to go to prove that it's nonsense. All right, respect, man. Salute. Rob. Yo, so yeah, I just got off the phone with Rob here. Rob, did you not see the link that I left for you? My FBA brother in Christ. Here you come in with that BS. All right, here you come with that bullshit. Rob and I are atheists for the most part, but you know he's still gonna try me with his mess. All right, salutes all around. Let's do this. I think we're getting a little bit lean here, but Rob just showed up the good part to where we're looking at the definitions, right? So we've let this hang for a minute, but ultimately, like I said, FBA engages in gamesmanship, as I said before. Foundational Black American, the whole name is a game in and of itself. So anytime any blacks are spoken of who are the first at doing something, that act in and of itself is foundational because they're laying the groundwork. By creating a group named Foundational Black Americans, anything that someone African-American has done to provide prominence to African-Americans, now FBA will say, oh, That was a founding act. That makes that person foundational. Therefore, he is a foundational Black American. So no, that's the gamesmanship that we were talking about. All right, so we'll go ahead and put this back. Get that out of the way. And we'll keep on going. So what else do we have? We had the interesting So now we have the exclusion tactics. FBA anti-Black rhetoric mirrors exclusionary political tactics by treating other Black populations as outside competitors for limited resources. So what we end up with, FBA anti-Black rhetoric mirrors exclusionary political tactics through resource competition, nationalist separation, and cultural gatekeeping. Now, as I said before, FBA is not the measuring stick at all. I don't know where they got it in their heads that they were. They are not the blueprint. Now, anyone who was around for Cassandra's piece of the show should understand here that they denounced their African heritage, then tried to create one by saying that we are they're directly descended from slaves. Therefore, that is our lineage. No, that is not your lineage. That's my lineage. That's Rob Platinum lineage. That's Beat Actives. That's Hotspots. That's our lineage. That is not yours, FBA. You have no lineage because you denounce your African heritage. Go ahead and speak on it, Hotspot. FBA have no resource, and it cracks me up. Exactly. And whenever they claim to have resources, it's the resources of folks that they are self-tethering themselves to. As I said before, FBA is nothing more than culture vulture behavior on their own. I tell no lies, people. I have no reason to. Consumerism is their resource. Yes, they will sit here and consume any and everything that somebody else has done, then make claims that, oh, this is FBA. No, it is not FBA. They have no culture. They have no icons. They have no history. They've got no legacy unless they are self-tethering themselves to the backs of African-Americans with distinction, which is why I always say that you have to watch for this self-tethered behavior that comes along with it. Oh, here. Why do you do this, Rob?
What's up, man? I just want to come through and show support, man.
Why you do? Jesus was FBA. No, damn this. You in timeout right off the bat. No, I'm not doing this with you. You just come in with this BS. Oh, snap. But anyway, there's that bit of humor. I try and tell them, no, rein it in, man. We're trying to be serious. But you know what? We're in the bottom 5-10 minutes of the show. So go ahead. Have at it.
What's up, John?
Go ahead.
I ain't coming to kick up no dust tonight, man. I'm just here riding along, and you know.
You gonna pour out a little liquor? Better yet, can you provide us some Jesus Saint liquor?
Yeah. Uncle Nearest was FBA.
So basically here, as I was saying, the scarcity mindset is what you get from the Foundation of Black Americans. But as I've said before, there's always going to be this wedge that they create. But at the same time, creating an identity after renouncing an identity. So you missed it earlier, Rob. I had a lady by the name of Cassandra, who I'm hoping to do some more shows in the future, who came by and gave us a full rundown on the Native American aspect of what FBA was trying to procure, and now their asses are going to jail, or can go to jail for that. She is actually taking down information, literally. She doesn't debate, she doesn't have conversations, she finds accounts, she finds names, and she reports it. And she provided hella information on where to go to make sure that this information is shared and is able to be utilized to shut down some of these FBA folks who are out here claiming to be Indigenous American when they are not. Making products, claiming that this is Indigenous artifacts or items when they are not.
What's their angle?
So,
Is it like fraud?
yep, that's exactly what it is. It's fraud that these pretendians are engaging in by claiming to be indigenous uh, indigenous peoples. She even gave a
Really?
breakdown of what it takes or how you are accepted into the community or recognized.
Hmm. That's
You
very
want to know
interesting.
why Tariq? You want to know why Tariq pushes his FBA? Okay, I'm game. Put it on his hotspot. Hotspot and Beat Active been holding it down here, man. So they're going to be some excellent resources with you, Rob, for the days you don't feel like coming up, but you got to do battle in the chat.
Battle in the chat. Sounds like a party to me.
Yeah. So
They think they could
I
defeat.
don't know. I don't know where Smith has been. We haven't seen Smith in what, almost 2 months or so. So I haven't seen him. I hope he's still got a job. But in the interim, again, yeah, I'm glad that Hotspot and Beat Active have showed up here because it does help fill in some gaps if there's anything that I might be unaware of or I need someone to add some additional content to, like you do when you're around.
Mhm.
These guys are holding it down. Matter of fact, Hotspot and Beat Active. If Rob and I see you guys here a few more times, I can see making you guys moderators here because, again, you guys know the facts that are spoken. You know what I'm saying, you recognize it, and that's something that Rob and I talk about, that we need to build a community of folks who recognize the bullshit when they hear it. So again, I appreciate you guys for doing that.
Yeah, thanks y'all. Thank y'all for coming out too. I appreciate y'all supporting my brother John over here.
Thank you, thank you. Salutes all around. So, resource competition and exclusion. Now, FBA operates off of a scarcity mindset. Okay, frames new Black immigrants and non-FBA groups as direct threats to jobs, housing, and government aid. Who does that sound like?
That
Who
sounds
does
like
that sound like?
our Christian nationalist friends.
Yes, it does. It exactly like yo. I'm gonna pour out a little liquor. This is simulated. I'm gonna pour out a little liquor here for Jesus Saint Liquor, aka Jesus was FBA.
As long as it's not an aristocrat, we all good.
Nailed it. All right, this is the same exact rhetoric that you hear from far right extremists and also Christian nationalists, aka bigots, nonetheless, saying that, oh, they're coming over here dirtying our land, they're taking our resources. So, wait a minute. But how crazy is this listening to this come from your own folks? Skin folk on top of that. Not kin folk, but skin folk. All right, B, Hotspot's got something. America, Europe, and China want all the resources from Africa. And because we have the mouths and the mind to move the world, we're targets to get distracted.
Excellent observation.
But no, what he's saying is that this is the nonsense that Tariq Nasheed was spreading to justify FBA.
Yeah, he might be an agent.
I laugh at that, but I know that agent is a term that is used. You and I know we've talked about how they use the term agent. But here's the funny thing. Do you remember that night that I introduced you to GS's stream and GS talked about how Tariq was using a lot of conservative code and dress and things to communicate with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is legit. From what GS was saying, he is ingratiated inside of that particular culture. So again, Tariq, folks, is not to be trusted at all. FBA talk is used to stop us from joining power with Africa to stop the exploitation of the land. Exactly. And Beat Active following up here. The only legacy FBA have made for themselves is to be the first house pets. Yes, like I said, emotional support animals coming out of the masses' house closet and publicly announcing themselves as the massa-owned, breeded, only bred house device of pets.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that strongly because I feel like the first house pets are the Black conservatives. They're the ones they are strongly fighting for position to be the new house slaves.
Oh, you know what? And so, yes, I take that back. So, be that. So, what Rob is saying, and he agrees with you, but he's saying that FBA already had someone ahead of them, and he and I have talked about this before. We have both said that the first house pets, emotional support animals for bigoted white conservatives were black conservatives. FBA is the latest to be added to the list.
Yeah, they would be. If I would consider them to be that, they would be second.
Yeah. So yeah, they're both. Funny enough, they always say that you blacks, if you're not black conservatives, you're on the Democrat plantation. Remember the other day when we talked about ethnogenesis, Rob? I may have mentioned it to you, but I think I may have mentioned this on the show when we talk about FBA claiming that they've experienced an ethnogenesis.
Yeah, I know what ethnogenesis, man.
All right, so yeah, so then so the concept, and folks, you haven't heard me say this, anyone who's new to this, anyone who's catching some replay, FBA always claims that they are lineage and that they've experienced an ethnogenesis. So if you're not familiar with ethnogenesis, what you're talking about is two separate, distinct entities or bodies that come together to form a new group or body. Now, this is also covered under the definition of amalgamation, which is pretty much similar. But you take something from one side, you take something from another, mash it together, boom, and you've got a new group. So what I theorized, well, I hypothesized first, but then I theorized. But then when I look at how FBA behaves, think of this. You've got the slave master who has nothing but disdain and disgust for his property, which are the African slaves. You have the African slaves who want their skin to be, and there was an old hymn called White as Snow. Oh, make my skin white as snow, oh Lord, this type of nonsense. And these folks are also accepting or acquiescing to Eurocentric values, meaning that they want it to be just like their enslavers, which again is another way to look at Stockholm syndrome, accepting the mannerisms, accepting the behaviors of your captors. So you take the want to be like their captor, white as snow slaves, the disdain and disgust of the slave keeper, right? They get together, map it out, whatever you want to call it. Boom. Here's your new group, FBA. They look like blacks, but they do not share, or should I say, look like Afro-Americans, African-Americans, Africo-Americans. They look black, but are not black because they still have that ingrained training of separation and divisiveness that they're looking for. Now, that's just my version of ethnogenesis for FBA, but I'm sure they have something completely off the wall. Matter of fact, I don't even think, Rob, have you ever heard anyone FBA explain their ethnogenesis after claiming they've had one?
I've heard a couple attorneys explain it. I've heard Tariq Nasheed explain it, but I think I have a different take on the ethnogenesis thing. So the ethnogenesis.
Stop when you make me laugh. Go ahead, get through it.
Okay, this is my definition of ethnogenesis. So it's a racist gaming console from the early to mid 90s.
So once again, Rob's going to go in timeout. We all remember the Genesis game station, right? Man, stop! Don't come in this bullshit. Here's my language, but Rob does this. All right, he does this.
No, but I don't want to diverge too far from the stream. Like I said, I'm here to ride along. I'm just here to listen, really. But you got my note. You got the thing like for when you go back on against the the Christians or whatever, right? That statement when they said that America was founded as a Christian nation.
Oh yes, we know that is a lie, but yeah, there is something right there.
1787, Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli, where he said that America, in no sense or no way, was founded as a Christian the government wasn't founded as a Christian government.
Yep.
I mean, it's a
Folks,
historical document by one of the founding fathers.
and I am glad that you found that and made that accessible. I was looking at that and trying to see where you were going with it, and then I finally pulled it in. There's that show we've been talking about we need to do where we just go ahead and go in on this whole Christianity aspect. We need to do that within the next week and a half, so it's time to do that. Before we get out of here, folks, I'm going to make a mention of one of the upcoming shows. Keep this in mind. Look this up if you want to right now. The 7 Mountains Mandate. You can type 7MM or just spell it out, 7 Mountains Mandate. But hold on to that, and that'll be part of the outro before we get out of here. So I got a lot of good information coming in here. Some FBA live in cities where there's not much Black immigrants at all. So where are they having interactions with them? They obsessed with New York, saying it's full of tethers. Yeah, they are. This old BS. And Be Active is probably Be Active. You laughing about my description of FBA ethnogenesis? And Jason Edward. Jason, hey man, thank you for coming through. Some FBA are real low lives, online all day crying about Black immigrants making up stuff. Yep. So hotspot. Tariq doesn't even know what a tether is. If anybody who watched the movie Us, it has to do with the swapping, replacing of consciousness. We saw first hand what the Biden administration did. So it said the Biden administration brought Israelis, Ukrainians, Chinese, Haitians, Venezuelan people. Why? To sway the vote in the Democratic favor. Now, this is probably where you and I may disagree on hotspot, because remember, Ellis Island said that bring me your weak, bring me your strong. Well, it was the concept of anyone could come to the country because it was not made just for white Europeans. So it was a country. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just gonna say, I actually agree with this statement, but I don't think there's any contesting what you just said. However, I think what Hotspot is speaking more to is the intent. And the same thing has been happening in Europe, and I hate to echo the supremacists or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the with the declining birth rates and everything, they need people to come in and replace the people that, the declining population for economic reasons. Because, we are below the replacement reproduction rate. So I don't know. I can only guess as to their motives, but it does appear that way. But Richard Pryor, in one of his stand-ups, I believe it was from like 1978 or so, he kind of prophesied it. He said that another FBA, but he said that Mexicans are the new N-words, and it was a joke, but it kind of some truth there.
It was not that
the jobs that we used to do, like farming and all that stuff. They brought them in to do those type of jobs. I'm speaking, more of the Latin American people. But
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob. You got to land, man. Land it. Let me know.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm good. I'm landed.
All right. So what people fail to realize is that starting back in, we'll say, 1790. So this goes way back. Back in 1790, you had the Immigration and Naturalization Act, and that act stated that only white men of good character could be U.S. citizens. Now, all this started when it was noticing that there were other people who wanted to come to America and seek their fortunes. Then you had the 1870 Immigration and Naturalization Act, which then said that only Africans who had been formerly enslaved were allowed to be American citizens. And then following that they came up in 1882 with the Chinese Exclusion Act. Now, if you look at it from the 1790 Immigration Act and the 1870 Immigration Act, at no point in time were the Chinese being allowed to become American citizens. And that was the whole point of the bigotry and the racism. because towards the latter part of the 19th century, going to the 20th, they had what they called the Yellow Scare, which was outright bias that was being shown towards the Chinese or the Japanese, pretty much Asians, by not wanting them to be a part of America. So when I see people making statements, a hotspot about people coming here, they're incentivized. No, these folks are not incentivized to come here. This is just rhetoric that has been thrown out here, because the folks who came over after slavery had ended came the same way that folks came from Ireland, came from Scotland, came from areas of Europe, came from India, because of the fact that America was supposed to be a land where anyone could seek their fortune. However, the problem with that, if we go back to the very first law that I mentioned here, or Immigration Act, well, when I won't say the very first, but still the 1790 Immigration Act, that set the pace. Again, look it up. The 1790 Immigration and Nationalization Act, again, stated that only white men of good character could be citizens. There were no borders. What's that, Rob?
And I said, I do believe that was the first Immigration Act of the United States.
And following up, I want to say the 1924 Immigration and Nationalization Act. This is the one that, remember that video I did, Rob, that talked about how Charlie Kirk said how during the 1940s or something like that, America had dropped their foreign-born percentage, blah, blah, blah. And for 40 years, they blocked immigration. Mm-hmm. If people didn't know any better, they didn't know that, well, I knew that he was talking about the 1924 Immigration and Naturalization Act that, for the most part, blocked anyone coming from Slavic countries or Eastern Europe, but preferred folks from Western Europe, but also blocked Africans. They blocked Indians, they blocked Asians, or if they didn't completely block them, they minimize their ability to come to the United States.
Right.
So again, this racism has always been it from the very beginning. It has been a basis that has been formed. There were never any borders. Now, here's the crazy thing. Hispanics were already in the country. Right. Now, generally, when you look at the 1924 Exclusion Immigration and Naturalization Act, you can see that white America at the time was fishing, trying to figure out who do we not want to be here. I think the Irish would catch a little bit of smoke. The Germans were getting some daylight to be able to come through, but you still had a lot of those Far East, the Indians, Asians, who they were not allowed to come in. But the Hispanics were already here. And it wasn't until 64, 65, when the voting rights and everything was being passed, that they started openly discriminating against Hispanics who've been in the country for 30 years, paying taxes, working, you name it. But only then did that become a problem after the 64 and Civil Rights Act was passed and the 65 voting rights came to be. Then all of a sudden, there are borders.
Yeah, my take on all of the immigration acts before the Immigration Act that happened, that was enacted into law.
Right.
The one that came out of civil rights,
mm-hmm.
is that they were actually further defining. They were changing the definition of who was white over time. So,
yep.
In the beginning, they just wanted free white people of good character or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the other ones they further drilled that down. And the only reason why they had to allow the free blacks to stay was because they had already been they were already here.
Exactly. They were already here.
And they needed labor,
Yep, the labor and resources. And as I said here, once you get to the point where you've made boundaries and you've made a decree and you made a ploy or a play, hey, wait a minute, we don't want any more of these people coming here. You're now setting up the boundary of where everything that we're dealing with right now came from. Going through some of what Hotspot was saying, like I said, a lot of this I don't agree with you on, Hotspot, only because of the fact that, again, yes, there are agendas in play, but what people seem to think here is that we allow the conspiracy side over that. Oh, we're trying to bring folks in to sway votes. What do you think that the Republicans are doing when they're paying $1 million to get someone to vote for Trump.
Or when they brought South Africans.
Yeah, or remember about they flew South Africans over here to supposedly get them away from ethnic cleansing and all this other stuff.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, that is not happening. It's the same conversation, but it's not the same bird because the bird's not really there. Now, yes, I would say it's the illusion. This is what I would say is a false equivalency. Now, and that's the one thing that we got to be careful of.
What I will say is that they were diverting funds, particularly, specifically for those communities. That the Democrats absolutely were doing that.
Oh, no one's going to deny that. Yeah, I will not deny that. I agree, because as far as a start off, like here's what we do: get you in the country, get you going. But the thing here is that when we look at this, where FBA comes in, this goes back to what I was saying, where they're coming over here, they're stealing our jobs, they're taking our funding. Well, wait a minute.
No, that's
how is anyone coming over stealing a job? Not to mention, now, yes or no, Rob, is a job at Burger King supposed to be a job that supports an entire family?
No, it's not.
Exactly. This is that stuff I remember in the 2024 presidential season where people talking about, yeah, man, my job over at Wendy's, they coming in taking the job. Dude, that is a job for someone in high school. That is a starting point.
But
that is when you take off.
But even that's a myth, because I'm speaking anecdotally, of course.
Yeah.
But nearly all of the immigrants I know, specifically the families in general. I'm talking about. You remember I told you I dated multiple Jamaican women, right? And the Latinos that I knew, they were entrepreneurial. They were more entrepreneurial than employed with the W-2 jobs or whatever. So if anything, they're creating jobs. Yeah, it might be true that they might hire people, that are like them or from their areas or whatever that they came from, or have similar ethnic backgrounds or cultural backgrounds or whatever. Yeah, that might be true. But most of the people I've known, most of the immigrants that I've known, created jobs out of necessity, really. You're talking about when people don't have English as a second language.
Yep.
Yeah. If they were building houses back home and they know how to do that, that's what they're going to do here.
Yep. You got to come and do
roofing and all the other stuff, and it helps the economy two ways. They pay in more dollars into the economy because they have to pay taxes, of which benefits they usually are not able to partake in. Right. So that's a net positive on that side in terms of bringing in tax revenue. And on the other end, they're also reducing the cost of goods and services that we already have here, which helps the people that were already here. So there's a net benefit of having immigrants come in. Now I'm planning my plane.
All right, so I have nothing negative to say about that because ultimately that is what the purpose of Ellis Island was for. I don't know how many people may remember that. Again, Ellis Island had a creed that I can't remember having said it in so long, but that creed was changed during Trump's first administration. To whereas if you heard me already mention the 1790 Immigration and Naturalization Act, the 1870 Immigration and Naturalization Act, the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, the 1924 Immigration and Naturalization Act, that was Rob, what was that? Was the Marshall Act? I had you look it up for me one time. That abolished the 1924 Immigration Act because of the bigotry that it was shown. These are all things that put in motion of where we are right now. Because as I told one of these FBA cats, there ain't a job out here that was for a rocket scientist that his ass qualified for. So why are you upset that this guy who just came from India or whatever had a PhD in physics? How is he taking a job away from you that your ass was never qualified for?
That's another. Oh my God, that's another issue I have with our community in general. We had a long period of opportunity, and of course it's being closed up by the current administration. But we had a long period of opportunity. We could have did the same thing that the Asians do. We could have demanded excellence out of our academic excellence out of our children. We could have did the same thing. We could have did the same thing as the like the other groups did in terms of going more entrepreneurial and engaging in the trades. Trade schools are cheaper, right? To go to attend. You can pay those loans back a lot faster than you can, for the 4-year degrees or whatever. And that's what that thing I got to about and I hate to go manosphere for a minute. That's my biggest issue that I have with women in our community. They purposefully choose the worst people in our society to procreate with. And then they complain about not having a father there. Meanwhile, and I worked with several women who were like that, had, the father of their children was locked up in prison for the entire time that the children were growing up. That is a massive problem. And again, anecdotally, I don't know one single black woman in real life who hasn't dated a criminal. And this is true. What he's saying, what Hotspot is saying is true, but that does not preclude us doing the things that I just mentioned.
True.
We still could have did the same thing. Our culture, that's our culture is our culture, right?
Right.
We could have encouraged all of these things in our culture, but we chose not to.
So I will say that a lot of the things that in our culture and Hotspot, I see we'll have to do another show where we'll get a little bit more into this, man, because I disagree with a fair amount of what you're saying, not out of animosity per se, but because of the fact that, again, it's the same bird, but there's a lot of false equivalency that comes with this. But then again, I also have to look at where people have grown up. Like Rob made sure he said, from my anecdotal experience, because everything that you say in Hotspot, I've seen the direct opposite of it. I've existed in those circles, like Rob and I have had conversations. I have seen the opposite of that. As I tell most folks, I've had more than the average black child and as much as the average white child when I've grown up. I've been able to live in different lands, different countries, experience different cultures, to where I can look at things from the perspective of people who have been here in America where we've grown up versus people who have come to America and even gone to their countries to see what life is like before they actually made their journeys over here.
Yeah, and my thing is, I'm coming from the South, right? So I was in, I lived life in the trenches. I've lived in 6 different states, I think. I got to see this stuff firsthand, and our the black culture across the United States is pretty homogenous. Like you have like for instance, like a black woman from North Carolina sound the same as somebody from Florida, Georgia, Virginia. Like they generally have the same mannerisms and everything else. But we could have we didn't capitalize. We could have.
Yep.
And another issue is like with the older generations taking up the idea, I got mine, you go get yours. That was a huge problem. Because like when you think about our counterparts, our white counterparts, right? A lot of times, and I witnessed this too, a lot of times the parents, they'll do things like they'll put a mortgage out on their house to send their kids to college. I've never in life seen a black family do that. And a lot of black families own homes.
If I can get in here, if you can land for a second. Okay. Now I'm going to push back on that because now, again, remember where I've said, now this is where you learn. Now this is what I'm saying, what I've experienced. I've seen plenty of black people do what you're saying that you haven't seen. I've seen it. I've got people that I work with right now who talk about, I'm setting my son up for success. I'm showing him how to run this business. I'm showing him how to go out and create wealth by X, Y, Z. Now, I'm watching this. Now, just a second. Now, I've seen this over so I'm 56, so when I joined the military. So we'll say over the last, 40 some odd years, I have watched blacks do exactly what you say that you haven't seen. But you have to remember, you have to look at the socioeconomic status of the folks we're talking about. So if you live around people who are, let's say, middle income, upper middle income or whatever, you will see those type of moves being made because the resources are available. So that's why I'm saying that what you said you haven't seen, I've seen it throughout my entire life. Doesn't mean that it's not real or what you're saying is not true. Doesn't mean that what I'm saying is always the case. But I'm saying that based upon the stations that we may live in life, we're going to see some things that maybe the two of us may not agree on, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Now, I'm gonna push back on that too. Based off of the results of our community, would you say that that's the majority or the minority?
Now, our community, what community are we speaking of? We're talking about low socioeconomic status?
I'm talking about the Black community as a whole.
All right. Now, I would say, now, whose experience is minority or majority? Whose experience? Yours, mine?
Yours. I'm asking if what you saw was the minority or the majority.
It was the majority in the station of life that I lived in. If you're getting what I'm saying, Rob. Again, I can't majority from what I can tell, from what I've seen, because that's where I've lived. I've seen people doing this. So to me, I would say I've seen the majority of people do this. But if you're saying overall, are you trying to say with blacks as a total, is it the minority or the majority? See, that is one of those ham/beans questions, whereas they're trying to get one answer either way. That is one that cannot be answered majority or minority, because you have upper, middle, and lower.
You can answer it. You can answer it with the numbers by themselves. So
now, what numbers would you say?
I'm not an economist. That's not my my specialty or whatever.
Let's go find Claude. Go find Claude Anderson. Now, that's what he's the one with this FBA lying and shit.
Now, I grew up solidly middle class, man. And I knew people who had multi-million-dollar homes. And most of them didn't do that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And even if it is the case, right? That the majority of the people that you saw was one way and the majority of people I saw was one way, was the other way, right? The results, how do you say the proof is in the output? Our output isn't that good. You're a better researcher than I am. Research the average wealth in the black community. That tells you everything you need to know. And no, a house is not an asset.
Who said that?
No, that's a fact. An asset is something that creates income, right?
Matter of fact, here, hold on for a second.
Most houses don't create income. And cars are not assets either.
Hold on, I'll be right back. Funny that you should mention it. I don't know why you and I can't get out of here, but I'm going to extend the show here for another 25, 30 touchdowns and stuff. But we're going to have to get back onto the topic here in a minute, because we're kind of veering off. But, so this is something that I saw that I grabbed and I wanted to read through, because you and I have been talking about numbers and everything in the background. And I'm thinking this is something, I'll post this when I get the information, more information about it, that we can share here, because Black financial literacy is something you and I have talked about. And you were giving terms, so I'll just do this real quick. Here's vocabulary. Income, total earnings from work, investments, or other sources. Expenses, money spent on goods, services, and living costs. Assets, resources of value that you own, contributing to your financial security. Now, there's another part in here where you can answer questions to where you determine what is an asset. So you don't find a house to be an asset. Somebody else may look at that if, let's say, they flip houses or things like that.
Those are assets. Those are revenue generating assets.
Right.
Yeah.
So then there's some folks who keep the one home they live in because it's a value. This is my mother's home. This is my familial home. This is my generational home. So it may not be considered an asset to someone else, but from a personal level, when it comes to values, that is an asset to them. But from what you're looking at it from financial aspect. So neither is wrong. It depends upon how you value that asset. Liabilities, financial obligations, or debts that reduce your net worth. And finally, net worth, a measure of financial health found by subtracting liabilities. Again, not the topic of the show, but because we were mentioning some things, thought I'd just throw that in.
Oh yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate that, man.
And years in North America, New World, we start to true. Yep. Yeah, again, but the reality is that most of North America was Spanish and French colonies for almost 300 years before the birth of the USA, which just turned 250 years. Bingo, again. We put value on houses, but really it's land because houses can burn down in a very quick moment. Hell, hotspot, I can tell you that for a fact. The house that I'm in right now, my house burned down about 3-4 years ago, but I bought the property next to me, and then my taxes went up. But yes, I can speak to that when the house is burned down, the land is still here. Look at all these people who are losing their houses, data centers. Yep, that is something that I think that we probably need to cover here, Rob, also because of this data center influx that's going on.
Oh yeah, oof.
I've seen that. But anyway, okay.
Oh, back on subject, right?
Was that?
Oh, sorry, back on task, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's get back on task here. So getting back to what we're saying about FBA and a lot of this circles back into this. When you look at it from the resource competition exclusion, we'll start again. Scarcity mindset frames new black immigrants and non-FBA groups as direct threats to jobs, housing, and aid. Zero-sum framing asserts that support for other black communities directly harms Native Black Americans, and then boundary policing uses strict lineage definitions to block others from claiming shared socioeconomic grievances. Now, this is what I said before, and I know you and I have gone back and forth about this, Rob, but it comes to be true again where we stated that it doesn't matter where the boat dropped us off, it's where we were all taken from. Because when we came here, there were no nukes, there were no alphas, there were no omegas, none of that, as I said before. But still, it's the whole thing to kind of pigeonhole and cut just a perfect shape of everyone that you want to include, while discounting everyone else who's had the exact same experience, be it someplace else. Then, of course, there's the political tax and rhetoric. Native separation mirrors mainstream nationalism. And you just mentioned this, Rob. You just literally mentioned this. Mirrors mainstream nationalist movements by declaring an authentic local group versus outside interlopers. Oh, we've got invaders coming to the country. Grievance redirection shifts systemic economic blame away from broader structures and onto competing marginalized populations. And finally, identity essentialism insists that historical suffering grants exclusive rights to modern political and economic remedies. And here's one thing that I enjoy about Beat Act. He's all on it when it comes to doing the research. Like, for example, we're going back, former Spanish territories, now U.S. states. 1, Florida, 1513 to 1821. These are states that believe they're controlled by the Spanish. Yep. California, haven't thought about this in years. 1592 to 1821. And then Mexico. Remember Mexico. With Alamo, 1821, 1848. So what Beat Act has been able to do here is go back and look at the time periods of the states themselves. And yeah, man, you flood me faster than I can get a look at Beat Act, but definitely this is going to be information that we're going to get chopped up and make sure we restrict. Oh, by the way, Rob, I killed some of the hours that you and I had done by accident. Can you explain why? So, you know, when we talk about the hours you have to do to get monetized?
Yeah.
So, I don't know why I fell asleep at the wheel. So, the StreamYard packs that I had started to run out. So, all I was trying to do was delete some of the storage space, trying to keep the broadcast. But I think I may have deleted a couple of broadcasts. And I tried to figure out, wait a minute, how do we go from 487 down to 480? And I realized, shit. When I deleted a couple of the shows, trying to make space, thinking that it would still be there and not affect the hours, I hit the wrong button. So we lost almost 9 hours. My fault. I'll take the blame for that. Just want to put it out there if you wonder why it's taking so long to get monetized.
No, it's all good, man.
Oops. All right, so going with that. So only got a few more of these left. The indigenous ancestry. Yes, here we go. My favorite. Check this out, folks. So I want to say, okay, this was some clown, I think it's called English Angel. So you notice, bro, we talk about how FBA will create arguments that no one was ever having, and then they want to hold your feet to the fire. There's no such thing as African American descent. African American is a made-up term by Jesse Jackson. Show me a U.S. document that says African American on it, like a birth certificate. I'll wait. You know what? I did. Since 2020, African American has been on the U.S. Census. But notice they always want to direct, well, find a birth certificate. Now, I didn't even bother dealing with most of this from this guy because, again, who here thinks that Jesse Jackson, let's do this, folks. Anyone who's here right now, and Rob, needs to be serious in this one, right?
Okay.
Put a 1 in the chat if you think Jesse Jackson coined the term African American. Put a 2 in the chat if you know that Jesse Jackson did not coin the term African American. So are we good on the votes? I said 2 for you. Yep. All right, hot spot. There's the 2. Anyone else out there? Even if this is replay game, you're watching the replay, go back, take a look at the video, and drop what you need to inside of the chat. So the correct answer is 2. But I had someone arguing with me saying that Jesse Jackson made this up. He made up the term in 1988. No, Jesse Jackson did not coin the term African American. And then somebody else came through, same thing, FBA, said that Jesse Jackson did come up with this. You're delusional. And people wonder why I stay so hard on FBA. How is it that you can have a group of folks who supposedly are a lineage? We have experienced an ethnogenesis, but yet all I see is comprised stupidity and bad grammar on top of it. And then the reasoning, how in the hell do you do this? But then, of course, I had someone who came through the other day, and Hotspot and Biak and I were here. And there was a guy I was showing who said that Malcolm X was FBA. Martin Luther King was FBA. Thurgood Marshall was FBA. Shirley Chisholm was FBA. John Henry Clark was FBA. And he had the moniker to read the sheet. Now, I don't want to put that level of stupidity on Tariq, but he travels in it, right? He travels in ignorance. So I don't know if that was actually his account. I don't know if that was exactly his account or somebody was using the Tariq Nasheed account, but whoever that person was had 41,000 followers. Can you imagine the type of ignorance that must exist with 41,000 followers who believes that Jesse Jackson made up the term African American?
Yeah, I would say it's ignorance. I think that's a more apt term rather than stupidity.
Yeah, I'll dial it.
I wouldn't insult anybody for lack of knowledge. I mean, I can understand if it was like an issue where they knew better and they still purported it. But
see, that's just it, Rob. We can't really tell if people actually knew better or just never learned better because the opportunity wasn't there. Now, I take for granted being that I grew up a majority of my life on a military installation where it was pretty much private school. So there was never any more than 15 to 20 kids in my classroom, which meant that unless you were just being a grade A ass and not paying attention, you always had the instructors available. And as a result, there were lessons that weren't missed too many times because of the fact that there were 30 kids in the classroom, and out of 30 kids, you got 5 or 6 who were being a disruption, and those 5 or 6 had the attention of the other 25 kids. So therefore, the teacher loses all continuity. And I've seen this going to public schools. But in private schools, if you act up, someone calls your father or they call the first sergeant or somebody like that, boom, and your dad's now in trouble, which means that you get your ass worn out for being a distraction. He's got to leave work to come deal with you. So again, I don't. So yes, I'll say, Rob, you're right. Let me back up off of stupid, and we'll use ignorant. That'll be the word that you and I can agree with. We'll say ignorant, because to me, in this day and age, how is that people still cannot get an education? But as I said before, that has a lot to do with where I've grown up. So therefore, I can't hold everyone's feet to that fire. I'll land it right there before we move on. Rob, you want to drop anything else before we get on to the next one?
Yeah, and I mean, and the sentiment of what you're saying speaks to my point again. The critical thinking thing is a lost art. It was rare that I saw any parents, and even to this day, still see any parents that that take an active interest in their children's education. They just send them off to school like it's daycare, like it's supposed to be the the end all or whatever for the for their kids' education.
Mm-hmm. I got a partner right now. He sat here. I remember when his son was in high school, he would do a full 8 to 10 hours work inside the IT shop, like myself, come home, stay up late to make sure that his son learned the lessons, even whiteboarding it all out. His son graduated, started college, and has never finished it. Still hanging on, still living at home as well. He's not a criminal, hadn't been in jail, doesn't have an arrest record. But there's something different about these Generation Z cats. There's something different. Here we go. Title.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Rob. Landon, we'll get on.
No, I was just gonna say there was a report that I saw that that concluded that like smart devices and smartphones or whatever,
mm-hmm.
they literally cause brain damage in young people. So, I mean, you add that plus the negligence of a lot of the parents in our community. It's a real problem. And we've already been having problems with the kids, not their educational abilities by the time they reach college or whatever.
Send me that link and we'll hash into that a little bit more when you get a chance.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Bet. All right. So, title: A Sermon on the Capture of Lord Cornwallis, credited to an African American. Yep, that's exactly where African American was first mentioned by a white man who saw that a black man had written, again, what beat activists provided, this sermon on the capture of Lord Cornwallis. That was the first instance, and this was in 1782. That this. Oh, you know what? Excuse me.
That's what I was talking about. I don't like that. I don't like a white person determining the or coining, because that's the closest thing to coining that we're gonna get, a term to define the black population. Every group has their right to self-determination, especially when it comes to their identification. So that's
again. He said that it was written by an African American.
Oh, you muted.
Who's muted?
No, I'm muted. I'm sorry.
He didn't. He said it was written by an African American. He didn't coin the term.
African American. He said African American. So he designated the person that wrote it as an African American.
No, African American was already there. He just used the term. That's the first term that it was used out loud. He did not create. That guy did not coin the term. He just utilized the term over there. See, that's just it. That there's no one specific person to say, oh, Oliver Redding over at 56th Street who sells gas. Yeah, he came up with it. And there's no one there that pushed it out. It's just a time period where the word was known. But the thing is that it just was not popularized because colored, Negro, and nigger. That, if you look at what does it say? What is that time period right there, Rob? What do you see? What's the time?
I'm gonna have to.
Se-
I can't go, man.
1782.
1782.
All right, so we was niggas, we was colored, we was whatever else, but also
and they
you
could
had
have just as easily said the same thing. They could have easily said one of those other terms. That's
right,
what I'm saying.
but he did not. So that means that there's a level of decency that the guy was expressing because of the intelligence. There's more behind what beat actors provide him, because I've researched this and I've done this in the show as well. It was based upon, again, the eloquence of how it was written. That most likely must have had something to do with the description that the guy gave. But nonetheless, that man that is speaking, he did not coin the phrase. He merely utilized the phrase.
No, I'm saying that's the closest we'll get to coining the phrase, because there's no, if you can't find an earlier documented mention, then
all
he would
right,
be
but
the
that's
first historical mention, right?
Well, it's a mention, but he did not coin. It is an historical mention. That's all we're saying, Rob. All we said was that Jesse Jackson did not coin the phrase. This dude mentioned a phrase, but he didn't say anywhere that he coined it. Do you see the difference? He did not coin the phrase. He mentioned that it was written.
Get to like having a person actually coin a term.
Okay, well,
if you can't find any historical documents of where anybody else said it prior to that, and he's the first known historical documented case of saying the word.
All right, then yes, it would be presumed, but it doesn't mean it's accurate. But again, here's the false equivalency. Just because the guy said
that's what I'm saying. That's why I said it's
the
closest.
It could be presumed.
Right. That's indicative of
say presumed. Yeah, we say presumed, but notice I'm not saying he coined it. I can say that it is presumed, but that is not saying that the guy coined it, which means that he didn't coin it. But one would presume as it being a possibility. But we do know for a fact Jesse Jackson did not coin that. We were known as Africo-American. There was African-American, Afro-American. Be active. Did you catch any of the term was used in the late 1700s was not yet common. At the terms like, there we go, like Negro and colored were more standard. The term Afro-American also appeared around 1831. So again, the term was known, but again, it was not common because, as I was saying, and what Be Active has provided, Negro and colored were more standard. Look at that as being more, for lack of a better word, debilitating. Whereas saying African American would have given more credence, would have said, oh, yes, these folks are actually intelligent. Because remember, and we've done some shows where I've talked about the scientific racism of the 18th and 19th century. Remember, in order to justify the enslavement of blacks, we have to be seen as ignorant, uncultured, savages,
subhuman,
in order to maintain that. So therefore, African American versus Negro, colored. What do you think would be the chosen word here, or the terms? Of course, we were Negro and colored, because anything outside of that would give a level of prominence or to cause people to not see us for what they wanted us to be seen as, which was unintelligent savages.
Yeah, and Negro and colored were the official terms until Jesse Jackson fought through legal means, meaning he sued organizations or whatever to recognize the youth.
All he did was, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob.
And he also lobbied to have the term African American recognized as the official term of black people in the United States.
Yes, he did. And the man,
Rob,
land your plane, man.
That was the 80s. No, that's what I'm saying. So, like, all the way up until that point, we were Negroes or colored, or N-words.
Well, actually, we were Afro-Americans because I remember around the 60s or so, you had Afro-American. Remember after the Olympics, where dude held up the Black Power sign. I can recall this because at 5 or 6 years of age, I remember being in a parking lot with my father, and had my back when I had hair. Shut up. For the most part, he patted down. But all the Jacksons had afros that you see every weekend on Soul Train when they showed up to do a song or whatnot. But still, I remember in the 70s the term Afro-American. I remember the discussion being had.
That's the lexicon versus the official designation. So
Right.
like
No,
all the
the
birth certificates
wow.
and the census.
Time out, Rob. Time out. Time out.
No,
Time out. Catch your breath.
that's a fact.
That's not a fact, but let me get my words in here. That's what I'm saying. It's a lexicon. It's a fact, but it was a designation. Yes, Afro-American. That was the designation. What I'm saying here is that even Afro-American was something that had to be revived. Which again, going back to when Jesse Jackson said we should be referred closer to African American because that is where our heritage was. That is where our ancestral home was. This was a closer association, which is why he revived it to bring it back. He didn't coin it, but remember from what Beat Active was showing, he stated specifically it was not a common term. But because it wasn't a common term does not mean it did not exist. That's the point.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I know you're saying something different. What I'm saying is that hold up. So Rob, we can't talk at the same time, Rob. Hold up. So what I'm saying here is that yes, there was a designation. I'm not saying that there was no designation for Afro-American or anything else. I didn't say that. I said that the designation for African-American came from Jesse Jackson reviving the term. See, again, you're making an argument or a statement that is nowhere in the conversation because that's not what the discussion is. The discussion was Jesse Jackson did not coin the term African-American. The discussion is that the term African-American was first recognized and utilized in 1782. Nowhere in that was it about Afro-American being the official designation or that African-American was an official designation until 2000. All right, you got it, man. We go ahead and get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, my whole point is that it's not official until it's legally recognized as the designation.
All right, so in 1990, the designation of Afro-American was changed to, 2000. The designation of Afro-American was changed to African-American. So that's what became the official designation of when it did. Yep. Negro, Black, and Indian both came from Spanish. Or I believe, is Negro, it's pronounced Negro. I believe, is that how it's properly pronounced, Beat Active? Negro? Because I remember there was an episode of Sanford and Son way back when where the Puerto Rican guy, the character was on for a little while. He was talking to someone in a restaurant and used the word Negro. And, Fred, Negro, he said, yeah, come here, Negro. He started misusing. He didn't use it correctly, but I recall that's how I remember it being pronounced. But anywho, as I was saying here, this guy, Monte, hey, what's going on, Monte? Nice to see you roll through. Okay, good. I haven't heard the word used in ages, so I just wanted to make sure that I had the pronunciation correct. Appreciate that. Yes, John, you pronounced it correct. All right. Hey, yay me.
Yeah, Negro is the American pronunciation.
Yep. Just see who's putting out there. I think we've got one. Where's our last one? Oh, here we go. All right. And here's another big FBA thing. Notice everybody wants to always use pre-Mecca Malcolm. Doesn't matter what you do, man. Everybody wants to use pre-Mecca Malcolm to say that he was this and he was that. So I had a guy who said that Malcolm X claimed to be an Aborigine Native American. No, he did not. What Malcolm was speaking of is that we as Africans were the native Aborigines to the planet.
And that's correct.
To the world. And that is all he was saying. But again, you let FBA get involved. Malcolm said that we were Aborigines. No, we were not Native Americans. No, Malcolm X did not claim to be a Native American. Instead, he used the word Aborigine in a global theological context derived from the Nation of Islam's teachings to mean any dark-skinned original people of the earth, rather than referring to the indigenous tribes of North America.
And yeah, and as I told you before, that's scientifically accurate.
Yes, it is. I mean, just the madness. But here's the crazy thing I want you to see here. Now, I just said this is this FBA bullshit, right? What got me up here throwing curse words? Are you mother? Anywho, Let's make this the last. There we go. Now, this is what this guy had. This is the FBA. All right. This is what this FBA guy had for his avatar. So who do we got, folks? We got Harriet Tubman, we've got Rosa Parks, we've got Angela Davis, and we've got oh man, I can never secure. Yes, thanks, Shakira Asani, who died in Puerto Rico, I think earlier this year or so. He has got them as FBA icons. What are we doing, people? I swear to motherfucking balls, if y'all are not out here checking this FBA shit when you see it, excuse me for the vulgarity, but this is that stuff that we have got to stop. FBA has no icons unless they are appropriating them from African Americans with distinction. And that's what we have up here, folks. We have African Americans with distinction in front of us that FBA attempts to always utilize as icons. And I think I've made mention on another show or so, Rob. Remember, I think I mentioned how you got people trying to fuse FBA ideology with Pan-Africanism. Oh, you recall that conversation?
Crazy.
Yeah. I'm name dropping. I would check it out. On the Shoulders of Giants. That's what this kid calls himself. He's got about 70,000 subscribers now, and they are all being fed this BS, whereas he will champion FBA topics and talking points, but then he slides in lessons from Dr. John Henry Clark or others trying to fuse this crap together. All right, I call this fusion FBA, where they're trying to use Pan-Africanism fused with FBA to give it credibility. FBA has no legacy. They have no icons. They have no history. All right, they have no lineage, people. And I've demonstrated this on many shows. Please go back and take a look at anything that I provided. Take a look at my work on TikTok. Take a look at what Rob and I have done here on YouTube. All we're going to do is provide the facts. Rob and I have our agreements, our disagreements here and there, but in the end, we always have to focus on what is correct versus what people choose to be right. And when we look at it from a correct standpoint, yes, you can have folks who will misuse that. And as I mentioned with FBA, playing the wordsmith game with foundation, it's nothing more than gamesmanship, semantics, and wordplay, to include wordsmithing. There's nothing foundational about Black American, foundation of Black Americans. I think we approved a little bit of that tonight and a lot earlier when we spoke with Cassandra. Hey, I appreciate that. All I can do is give you facts on this. If you ask for an opinion, I'll give you one, but otherwise, it's just going to be facts that we discuss up here. And one thing that Rob and I like to do is let folks know we don't shy away. What are you doing?
Oh,
you all right, Rob?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Shit. But one thing we do is that even though if we happen to have a conversation about race, we realize there's a racial component to the conversation that we have, but we will never engage in racism. Absolutely not, because that is not what we do here. And again, Beat Actor, I appreciate you, man, for throwing out the kudos, man. Thank you much for that. Again, I want more folks to understand that if you're having an issue deciphering this nonsense from FBA and what you're hearing anyplace else, stop by. Now, FBA is not the only focus that we have, but because of the fact it has gotten to be such a problem, I wanted to make sure that there was pushback and people knew where it was coming from. Whether I'm on TikTok or whether I'm on YouTube, understand I am not FBA's friend. And you tell them John Henry said so. All right, let's go ahead and close it out. Rob, any final last words?
I disagree on one point. They do have an icon, man.
Oh, here we go. Go ahead. Who's the icon, Rob?
Tariq Nasheed. You're supposed to be laughing.
You're right. If we had to make an icon, that would be their one and only icon, and that icon has no lineage. He has no heritage because he's denounced his African heritage, meaning he's got no origin story. So therefore, there's none of that. But hey, you know what? I'll go with that. Yes, he is his own icon. He is his own lineage. Not even a footnote. The last thing I'll say, folks, here, or last couple of things, is that, again, FBA is one of those things that we have to really put a foot down on because we did not do our jobs as Generation X. For those of us who have kids, I don't. But still, from those who do, we didn't stay on the gas. Once we achieved civil rights, we should have made sure it was something that was constantly taught. Even though the attempt was made, we didn't do a good job of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have people right now thinking that Jesse Jackson coined the term African-American, that Martin Luther King is foundational Black American, and that Blacks are indigenous to North America. Nor did we leave Africa on boats. This is how horrendous the level of competence has become in our community. My biggest discretion, again, is against those who do not take the time to step up and step back at this nonsense when they hear it because they're fearful of being ostracized, or when I say ostracized, poked at, made fun of. Never let anyone try and stop what you have to say by calling you, oh, stop with the victim mentality. No, it's not a victim mentality. Especially when everyone seems to always want to go after the person who is speaking word to power, but having them portrayed as a victim, but no one ever has anything to say about the victimizer. Keep that in mind, folks. And above all else, facts don't choose sides. All right, people do. Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let us know. Share it if you do. And subscribe. This is what you're looking for. All right, folks. So I want to say thanks to Be Active. Thank you also for Hotspot for rolling through. We also had someone who snuck in here for a hot second. Hey, shout out also to Monty, Unit 147. And do we have anybody else who came through? Quickly, there we go. Madacy T-Mac. Hey, thank you for coming, well. And also, I want to say, again, appreciate it for Cassandra, who's here at the very beginning of the show. All right, folks, that's about it. So, as always, the next time, if you're going to be here, be about it with us, all right? Rob and Jay, we out of here.
Peace.